It's visible.
Okay, Chair. Am I audible?
You are audible, Sia. I had a damage
Yes.
control that I had to do. So I'm not using my office, so now I must manage the noises around me to be able to proceed with the meeting. Members, we have the agenda before us as flagged by the committee secretary. We have amended the agenda so that we can deal with all outstanding minutes of the committee, including adopting or considering the draft study tour report. We know we have an oversight next week, starting on Tuesday until Friday. We must also talk to that oversight program, including the second term program, up until we go to recess, I think in June or July, on how it is. And then immediately after that, which is matters for the portfolio committee, we'll then be joined by JICS for them to take us through their annual performance plan and the budget for 2026-2027 financial year. Can I have those who moves for the agenda so that then we can proceed?
I move that we adopt the agenda, Chair.
Thank you so much. I see Honorable Hendricks. The hand would second. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am, I second.
And Honorable Hendricks. Therefore, the agenda is fully adopted and serves as a guide for today's portfolio committee meeting. Committee Secretary, do we have any apologies that we ought to note?
Good morning, Chair. Once again, we have two apologies from our side, Chair. Honorable Gasa is writing exams today. He will not be able to attend the meeting. Honorable Hendricks has tendered also an apology that he will start with us, and he has another committee meeting that is starting at 11. So he's with us now until 11 or until that meeting starts, and then he would leave the committee, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Sia?
Sorry, Chair. Yeah, I think the apology of Honorable Sokopo as well is attending a funeral. He's traveling today. He indicated he might join if it's possible while he's on the road, but I'm aware he's traveling to a funeral, Chair. Sorry.
Noted. Thanks. The apologies are noted. We do have a quorum for the meeting. Eh?
Yes, Chair, we do have a quorum for the meeting. And
Okay.
Honorable Muela is also just joined us now. So we are coordinating. We can proceed.
Okay. Thank you. We'll then start with the minutes. Kindly flag them. Which minutes are we starting with? Members would have received the minutes in advance. They've been populated to us for us to be able to go through them. And therefore the minutes would be taken as read. We'll just go through them for noting if there is where we need to correct. Honorable Sokopa, please switch off your video. Honorable Sokopo, please switch off your video. We can see you in the car and the people you are with. Please switch it off. The minutes would be taken as read, colleagues. We can then go through them for us to note if there's where we ought to correct, if it's not correctly captured and all of that. And then we'll have inputs afterwards. Sia, please kindly do that. Take us through page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. I'm distracted by the profile picture of Honorable Hendricks. The picture is looking at me, so page 5. And then we'll go to page 6. And then the last page, which is page 7. Members, the minutes of the 10th of March before you, as highlighted. Any inputs to them, or are they a true reflection of what transpired in the meeting? Honorable Niehaus?
Thank you, Chair. I think it reflects what transpired in the meeting, and I propose adoption.
Any seconder? Thank you so much.
I'll second.
Thank you so much, Honorable Engel. The minutes of the 10th of March are duly adopted and serve as a reflection of what transpired in the meeting. We'll then move for another set of minutes. Minutes of the 17th of March, where we met the department on their third quarter performance report, and we were at the Marks building, M46. The minutes would be taken as read because we would have all received them in advance to be able to go through them and highlight where there are areas where we ought to correct or to input on. So therefore, the committee secretary will take us through where perhaps we would indicate it's not correctly captured. Page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. And then page 6. Members, the minutes of the 17th of March before you. Any inputs, or do we take them as a reflection of what transpired in the meeting?
Honorable Chair,
Yes, Honorable Klute.
I can confirm it's a true reflection, so therefore I move for the adoption of the minutes.
Thank you so
Honorable Chair,
much.
Honorable
Yes,
Chair, move.
Hendricks,
Can I move?
you are seconding.
I'm seconding, sorry, Chair. Can I second? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so
Thanks, Chair.
much. The minutes are adopted and duly adopted and serve as a true reflection of what transpired in the meeting. Then we'll go to the minutes of the 31st of March, which were again in Mark's building, where we had a meeting with the Department of Health on the state patients whom are detained in correctional facilities. The minutes again will be taken as read because we would have received minutes in advance for us to be able to go through them and make sure that they serve as a true reflection of what would have happened in the meeting. So where we need to correct, when the committee secretary take us through each page by page, would reflect where perhaps it's not correctly captured, and then we'll allow for inputs immediately after. Page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Members, the minutes of the 31st of March. Honorable Niehaus.
Thank you, Chair. I believe that the minutes are a true reflection of what transpired in the meeting, and I move for adoption.
Thank you so much. Do we have a seconder?
Thank you, Chair. I second that.
Honorable Bosch, seconds. See, I was Bosch in the meeting.
Let me
See,
double check, Chair. Yes, I want to double check that,
Yeah,
Chair.
please check the minutes.
Yeah.
The person that must second the minutes must have been in the
Yes,
meeting.
Chair. Yes,
I was
yes,
in the
yes.
meeting, Chair.
He was attending, Chair, on behalf
Okay.
of, but yeah.
Thank you so much.
He was the only one, in fact, from the MK.
Oh, that's I had forgotten.
Yeah.
It is that week of school and stuff. The minutes are duly adopted, and they serve as a true reflection of what transpired on the 31st of March. We'll then move to another set of minutes, which is the minutes of this Tuesday meeting on the 21st of April, where we were in the third floor on Plain Street, Committee Room 2, where we received the annual performance plan and budget of the department for this financial year, which is 2026-2027. And the minutes were sent to members in advance, so they are serving as a guide, as they would be taken as read. Where inputs ought to be made will be done immediately after. And if there's anything that is not correctly captured, whilst the committee secretary take us through page by page, members, you are therefore, you would make an indication where we ought to correct or properly capture. So Sia, we'll start with page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4, which is the last page. Members, the minutes of the 21st of April.
Honorable Chair,
Honorable Klute,
I move hereby for the adoption of the minutes. Can confirm it's a true recollection.
thank you. Honorable Shangase,
Yes, Honorable Chair, I second the adoption of the minutes.
thank you so much. The minutes of the 21st of April, which was this Tuesday, are duly adopted and serve as a true reflection of what transpired in the meeting. We'll then move to the 4th item of the agenda, which would be the consideration and adoption of the study tour in the UK. Sia, kindly flag. Members, the report was sent to all of us in advance. It's limiting by nature because not everyone was on the study tour, so it will be difficult for amongst all of you to even make input in terms of whether the report has captured what would have happened or the engagements that would have happened in London. So it only limits to those who were a delegation that went to the study tour, but it does not limit members on engagements with the report. But in terms of acknowledging the report capturing all activities that would have transpired, it will only limit to those who were in attendance. So you would have received it, and I believe that you would have equally also had an opportunity to go through it, so that if there is that process of engagement, you engage what you would have equally read. Page 1. Page 2. Honorable Noluchungu, Honorable Engelbrecht, Honorable Sokopo, I'll need you to come on board, all of you, for any corrections that we ought to do or any addition where the committee secretary might have omitted because of other members might not know. I know Honorable Kasa is not in the meeting, so hence I did not mention him. So we'll go to page 3. I think day 1 was the visit to the High Commissioner's office. Sia, just roughly take us through the report.
Hey, Chair. We'll quickly run through the report, Chair. Okay, let me start with day one, Chair. On day one, the committee, the delegation visited the High Commission. There was also the Committee on Social Development, but we mostly focused on the engagements on what transpired. The High Commission is Mr. Mamabolo, is based in London. And his welcoming remarks, that's what he's covered. In relations to the United South Africa and United Kingdom bilaterals, that's what he covered. I'm not going to go through them. In relation to the political landscape, those were the comments. With regards to the foreign policy on trade, that's what he covered. In relations to the electoral predictions in what is happening in the political space in the UK. That's what he covered, giving us a synopsis of the Labour and the Conservative parties who might succeed and the political landscape there. In the relations to foreign policy, that's what you covered. In relations to Africa as a whole, that's what the High Commissioner covered. Basically, it was not necessarily a long meeting. It was an engagement where he was welcoming us and giving us a summary of the work that he's involved in and the political landscape and also inclusive of the history. And on day two, the committee visited the United Kingdom Parliament, which consists of two houses, the House of the Commons and the House of the Lords. And that's how the UK Parliament is compositioned. It has the House of the Monarchs and the House of the Commons. The committee's focus there was on the prison systems of the UK. There's the background as to how many prisons they have. They have a mixed system where they have prisons run by government and they have prisons run by the private contractors, similar to the PPPs we have here. And that's the statistics that we were provided with during the engagement, and the synopsis on what particular offenders do they have. We met a member by one of the members who we then broke and had a separate engagement with, which is an honorable member Ashley Forbes, who's a member of the opposition of the Conservative Party, who serves in the Select Committee on Justice that deals with prisons. They call their prisons that side versus us who are calling our prisons correctional centers. He then gave us a whole understanding of the prison system that side, on how the ministry works and how do they provide oversight and how do they scrutinize what government does. And then he expressed his views, and there were a lot of highlights he mentioned that we covered. Also engagements on how they work on that side. There were a lot of similarities we picked up, and that both jurisdictions are facing similar challenges concerning issues of contrabands and the traditional methods of including officials. And there were issues of highlights whereby that there's new emerging trends of usage of drones. And we were also highlighted that similar emergence might happen in South Africa. And there were quite a lot of inclusive engagements that the honorable member gave us, which are covered. Where one of the highlights we will see in the recommendations below that they have a policy of not releasing inmates, offenders on Fridays, but it will, on the recommendations it's covered. That's the engagements which we had with the Honorable Member Ashley Forbes. It's quite comprehensively covered here, Chair. From I think it's from page until down here, and the committee together with the Portfolio Committee on Social Development Members in South Africa held a short engagement with the Home Affairs Committee, which from that engagement we extracted what related to correctional services, which was not much because some of the issues that were covered quite comprehensively. We're dealing with issues of social development because we also met our counterparts, the Portfolio Committee on Social Development, that is coming from the same parliament. So there were some times where we had joint meetings and it was not much that related to correctional services. The committee also had an opportunity to observe a committee in action. The committee observed the Justice Committee, where there were presentations. They call them oral test witnesses. The Regional Probation Director of Wales and Prisons and the Regional Probation Director for Greater Manchester, which were providing presentations on the day. We covered similarities a short similarities that we observed on how they conduct their committee businesses. Moving on to day 3, the committee again visited the UK Parliament and met with the House of the Lords, Justice and Home Affairs Committee members. During the engagement, we received the report from the Select Committee on an analysis report, sort of an inquiry report that they covered. They did, and then they did an inquiry in the prison system in the UK and found out the followings. And these are the topics that were covered in the report, and they are comprehensively covered down here, Chair. I will not go through them. The committee had an engagement with the Right Honorable Lord Foster Bath, the chairs the Justice Committee and responsible for oversight in prisons. And these are the engagements that were covered in that engagement. I will not go through them, Chair, in the interest of time. And then the committee also had an opportunity to observe question and answer session of the Prime Minister in the House of Commons. And in the interest of time, Chair, I will not go through them at the current moment. There were a lot of similarities that we picked up. Due to the fact that some of the planned engagements, we, as the committee, wanted to go like visiting, specifically in visiting prisons, we were making interventions while we were there, and then we were given an opportunity to engage the Minister of Justice. And this is the engagement that we covered with him, trying to explain that we wanted to visit a prison, and there was commitments that they would ensure that we visit some of the prisons, but those engagements did not yield results. That's the summary of the engagements we had, and these are the recommendations, Chair, on contrabands. This is what we would want. We observed similarities, and there's a recommendation we're making on overcrowding, on the reintegration support, what we observed, and we're making a recommendation, and on the enhancement of the electronic monitoring system, and what we observed, it's called tagging that side when we make a recommendation on human resource capacity and staff safety. It's what we observed and we're making any recommendations. I will not go through the recommendations, Chair, in it entirely. Those are the recommendations we're making, Chair, on what the committee can pick up and bring forth for the Department of Correctional Services to follow suit and learn from that side, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Am I still audible?
You're audible.
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah,
Chair?
you are audible. I was hearing. I muted. I said I'm in a space where I ought to mute my mic.
Okay, sorry, Chair. Okay, Chair, that's the long and short of it, Chair. In the interest of time, I try to summarize as quickly as I can, Chair.
Okay. Members, do we have any inputs or where we need to add, especially those who took part on the study tour? Is there something that Sia has left out that needs to be added in the report?
No, I think he covered. From what I can recall, I think it's a good representation of what we did.
Okay, thank you so much. So do you acknowledge that this is the true, the report has perfectly and correctly captured what transpired in the study tour, including recommendations that would recommend to the department on what we would have observed, or similarities that we have as the country and the UK in their systems. But what we also need to highlight is that I'm not sure if it was captured, is that we couldn't do any oversight or visit any of their prisons because they are not anything that speaks to security in their space. They don't allow any outside people to go inside it. So they are not like us, where if another country comes to South Africa and want to see how we operate to an extent of taking them even to our correctional facilities, we are open to it. They are not open to that. So we tried, but that was blocked badly, to an extent that in being blocked, they then arranged a meeting for us to meet the minister. The meeting of us meeting the minister, it was on that basis of trying to manage us not to even probe further to visit the prison. But they are too strict on security matters. Anything that is security is not open for everyone, like how our country is. So I thought I make that addition. So any input, members? Yeah, yes. Honorable Sokobo.
Chair, I just wanted to add to what you have raised. Probably it's in the report, but I thought I feel I must raise it. Only those bans, the boy that we've met at Nando's, those tags. I wanted the word tags. I'm raising it, Chair. And the second thing, that they were also saying that they were using drones, or criminals were using drones to bring in contrabands. I'm raising it because in our last meeting with Tuesday's meeting, I heard the new CDC raise an issue of drones as well, but I suppose. Am I audible, Chair?
I'm back, guys. Yes. I
Am
said I
audible?
need to hand over.
You're audible, Honorable Scopo.
Sorry, Honorable Sokobo. On Engel, please try to chair on this one.
I will do so.
Honorable Chair, so I'm saying that the CDC were making reference of drones. Although the drones in the UK is used to bring in contrabands, I suppose we would have to be proactive, and I'm in support of what the CDC was raising, of having drones as an element of curbing or circumventing contrabands. So those are one point I just wanted to make, but I wanted to make the point of the tax for a consideration, because they were using tax to reduce overcrowding for inmates that are sentenced for 12 months and less. So it's something that we can consider and think of as an element of minimize or reducing overcrowding. Thank you, Honorable.
Thank you, Honorable Sekopo. Yes, I can add to that, which I found probably the most valuable thing that we saw there is how the United Kingdom expanded their probation system, where non-violent, as you said, 12 months or less sentenced is not incarcerated so much, but using electronic tagging or electronic monitoring, where they have, because I got the figures, people on probation in the United Kingdom is 246,000. As opposed to a prison population of just under 90,000. So there's a huge shift in the United Kingdom towards probation and not incarcerating in order to alleviate prison overcrowding. They also sit with dilapidated infrastructure, as I understand, in discussions that we had, because some of those prisons are 200 years old. As you can imagine, the cost of maintaining such facilities is huge. But I think we should really press hard in the probation system together with the tagging, what they call tagging, electronic monitoring, because the one can't work without the other. But that had a huge positive impact on their system as a whole. So is there any proposal for the adoption of this report with amendments?
Honorable Acting Chair, I've raised my hand. I just want to make a general comment, please.
Sorry, I did not see your hand. Yes, Honorable Nias.
Yes, no problem. Thanks. I obviously was not part of this tour, so it is not a comment about the veracity of the report, but more in general, remarking about the fact that the United Kingdom did not allow us to visit any of their prisons. Now, obviously, this is their decision, but I think at the same time we should take note of it. In the first administration, when I was chair of the Portfolio Committee on Correctional Services, I was also part of a study tour to the UK, and then they did allow that study tour to visit a number of their prisons. So obviously they've tightened things up. I think we should take on board that if the United Kingdom has taken such a decision, we should be reciprocal, and in future, we should also then apply the same attitude that we do not allow members of the United Kingdom, when they visit South Africa, to visit our security facilities, including prisons. It seems to me only correct diplomatically that if they treat us in this manner, for whatever their reasons may be, and I'm not judging it, at the same time, in terms of diplomatic protocol, there should be a reciprocal approach, that we also don't allow them then to visit our security facilities, including our prisons. So that is a proposal that I would like to make, and perhaps we want to include that in the report. Thank you, Acting Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Nias. Well, Honorable Nias, I don't think it is for the Committee on Correctional Services to make decisions on reciprocal diplomatic issues. I think that should possibly go to either Cabinet or the Portfolio Committee on DIRCO. But yes, I did ask a lot of questions about that, and it seems that they've got a bit more of a complicated. So there's not one single department responsible for prisons in the United Kingdom. It's various departments, which makes it, I think, unnecessarily complex and very difficult to navigate. But I must say that it was a bit of an irritation that we encountered, because in the one moment, yes, you are definitely going, and the next moment, no, you can't go, you know, and it was between the two continuously. So I mean, it is for them to decide, and some of the MPs even indicated that they can't, like us, just take their parliamentary tag and walk into a prison. It is not allowed. The MPs are not even allowed to visit prisons without prior arrangements being made. The reasons for that I don't know and I don't understand, but you know, it is for them. But I don't think it should be for us, you know, to. I mean, they did welcome us, and they did host us, and to now in our report state, well, if you come here because you didn't allow us, we are not going to allow you. I think it is. I don't think it is proper and just from us to do that. But obviously, that's only my own opinion. People might have a difference, and you are free to voice that difference, should that be the case. Honourable Niels, your hand is up again. Do you want a second bite?
Yes, I don't want to debate it too much, Chair, but I think there is a diplomatic principle of reciprocity, and we have seen a clear negative attitude towards South Africa from the United Kingdom, and specifically towards progressives in South Africa from the United Kingdom. So while we may differ between me and yourself on this issue, I would like still to continue to propose that we can make a recommendation as the Portfolio Committee on Correctional Services. Obviously, it's not for us to decide on the final approach to reciprocity, which lies within the ambit of the Department of International Relations and Cooperation. But me not having been part of this study tour, when I heard that you were not allowed to visit these prisons, I found it quite surprising. Also, in the light of the fact that my impression was, when this study tour was planned, that it certainly was going to include visits to correctional facilities in the United Kingdom. And I would have thought that such visits would have been quite important to make our study tour as successful and as effective as possible. So if the attitude against South Africa has changed from the United Kingdom, and I again repeat that in the first administration, when I was chair of the Portfolio Committee on Correctional Services and we undertook a visit to the United Kingdom, the attitude was evidently different, and we did not face the kind of obstacles which I think was unfortunate that you faced as a delegation of our Portfolio Committee on Correctional Services on this study tour. So I just would like that to be reflected in some way in the report, because I think it is of significance. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Niels. I just also need to bring to the attention of the committee that a large part of the problem was that apparently the South African High Commission in London is a bit understaffed, and two portfolio committees did visit London at the time, and it would have been three. And there was a staff shortage, and I think that the permissions or the organizing of the tour were not done on the part of South Africa, the way that it should have been done in a perfect environment because of staff shortages. So we just need to bear in mind that some of the reasons why we could not visit everywhere that we wish to visit was partly because of fault on the South African side as well. We just need to take that into account as well. Sia, I see you want to say something?
Yes, Chair. Yes, Chair.
I wanted to come in.
I think, sorry, Honorable Sokopa, you were saying?
I wanted to come in there to also extend what the Chair, Honorable Engelbrecht was saying. There was no out and out refusal from the UK side, even though in our own we thought it could have been. They gave reasons why is it not possible, and the issue was between Derco, our side, and international affairs from their side. So it came out as a lack of communication between the two that has to deal with the matter. So in that way, the matter was then removed from the Parliament of the UK. So it was more our Derco, to an extent, taking blame for a delay and the whatever they call it, their international relations. So I'm just raising that it might have been our thought, but there's nothing bold or formal that have an indication that they were refusing. So that it is that also captured as such.
Sia?
Thanks, Honorable Chair. I wanted to highlight what Honorable Sokopo is just indicating, that in as much as the observation was that there's an element of the refusal, but what had finally transpired with the meeting, the last meeting with the Minister of Justice, was that it was the first time when he heard about our visit as well, when we landed there, which is when we visited day one, when one of the members realized that we could not visit prisons. He then alerted the minister and tried to ensure that we managed to get a visit. So, but we later found out that there was a miscommunication or a delay in the communication about our visit between our DERCO and the international relations of the UK, that side. So that is the main cause of they said their indication was that you need a quite a lengthy period to visit their prisons, even themselves as MPs that are serving in the UK Parliament. They can't just wake up and rock up in our system whereby a member can go to any prison at any given time. They don't have a system of that nature. They have to inform the prisons and give them sufficient time for that planning due to their security reasons and so forth. So I wanted to also put that in the meeting. But Chair, quickly, for procedure, I think you had recommended the report. Maybe I saw the hand of Honorable Noluchungu. Maybe she wanted to second because we need to adopt the report, Chair. And then maybe this discussion can continue if members would want to discuss. And number two, I wanted to highlight the issue of time, Chair. We had said JICS is going to start at 9:15. We're now at 10:15. We're now at 5 to 10, Chair. So not necessarily trying to persuade the closure of the engagements on the issue. But then, Chair, if we can maybe get a seconder to the report, and then the discussions can continue, Chair, so that procedurally we're covered that we did adopt the report with the additions that we're going to make. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Sia. Honorable Nolutungu, your hand is not up now. Sorry, I did not have the little thing open on my laptop to see hands. So I don't know, but I see Honorable Niaus's hand is up. So Honorable Niaus.
Yes, Chair, and this is my last word on this. Obviously, I wasn't there, and it is interesting and insightful to hear the comments about the issues that arose at our mission in the United Kingdom, our High Commission in the United Kingdom, and also the role of the Department of International Relations and Cooperation. And I would think there should be at least some reference to these failures in the report, not to be unnecessarily negative, but to highlight them also for future portfolio and joint standing committee visits, so that we get a proper performance from our Department of International Relations and Cooperation and our diplomatic missions in terms of the work that they need to do to make these study tours of ours as successful as possible. A lot of money goes into these study tours. It takes quite a bit of time out of our parliamentary program. It is dedicated time, and it should be utilized to the most effective manner possible. So DIRCO has a role to play to ensure this, and if they fail to do so, I think it should be highlighted in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Niaus. Now, may I get, I did recommend the adoption of this report. Is there anyone that would like to second?
Thank you very much, Chair. I had raised, good morning to the honorable members. I had raised my hand long before even Honorable Niehaus, but I see that you did not see my hand. I wanted to, I think I'm covered mainly by Honorable Sokopo, because I wanted to raise the issue of the tagging as to how overcrowding is managed in the UK. And secondly, the issue of miscommunication, because you cannot put the blame squarely on the UK. There was some glitches from our side. So we cannot squarely put the blame on them, but it is mainly covered by all the speakers. With that being said, and I would like to second the adoption of the report with the additions. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable. Yes, so Sia, if we can then just make a few adjustments. And then, Honorable members, I think we should proceed to allow JICS to present their APP. And if we can continue. Thank you.
Chair.
Is there another hand that I didn't see?
It's important. Chair, I don't know. I think on the agenda, we're supposed to also look at the oversight program for next week.
On our agenda, Chair, in the interest of time, if you'd allow me, Chair, to quickly take members through the oversight program. And I think members do have the second term program. I'm not sure if we will have enough time to go through it, but I will take 5 minutes just to go through this one. We are traveling next week. We will be leaving Monday. Members are expected to book. There was an agreement that members will use their entitlements to book and go to Kruger, which is in Mpumalanga. We arrive in Nelspruit. On Tuesday, we visit Nelspruit Correctional Center. We're accommodated in the capital in Bombela. On Wednesday, we visit Barberton Maximum and Barberton Youth Center. We then leave Mpumalanga, and then we go and be accommodated in Pretoria at the capital main lane. Thursday, we're visiting Standerton and Middleburg Correctional Center, and we come back again to Pretoria. Friday, we're visiting Witbank Correctional Center, and we come back and have a debriefing session as we normally have during the end of each and every oversight visit. And then we come back Saturday. Members were expected to book their return flights from OR Tambo. That is about it, honorable members. If there are any suggestions, I think in the interest of time, Chair, they can be made directly to the committee secretaries, or I think members can have the conversation right now if there's any suggestion that members would want to change, and then we have to address that with the chair, and we'll come back to those members. But what we want to emphasize, members, is that you need to send us, as the secretariat, Ms. Nolundi, who's been texting you in terms of your flight, so that what time are you landing in Mpumalanga, so that we can organize transport. We do not want to find members arriving that time while we are making our way to the airport, because when members arrive in Mpumalanga, we'll already be stationed in Mpumalanga. We're flying in early. So, and we also want to ensure that your flight out, members don't miss their flight out the Saturday morning. So we're pleading with members. By now, you should have sent the communication to Ms. Nolundi or myself, so that we can quickly draft those pickup times on arrival and the pickup times on your returns, members, or in anything that the members would want to also raise, if your dietary requirements have changed and all those sorts of things. This today is the time where we can do those things and communicate, because I think Monday is a holiday. So if we want to communicate to service providers and so forth, you would have to give us that information before end of business today. And I think that's about it, Chair. I'm not sure if members would want to make comments, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, Sia. Well, I do not see any hands. So I think we can proceed.
Before you proceed, I'm back. Before you proceed.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Let me make let me talk to this. The reason, members, you are going to use your entitlement is because we want to preserve funds, so that the next study tour that we ought to take as the committee would be able to have everyone coming on board. The previous study tour made us to draw lessons from other committees on how their delegation was much more bigger than ours, and where we ought to augment and minimize, or in essence mitigate, to be able to allow everyone to go on a study tour, because it wouldn't be correct for a delegation to be minimized every time. And that would require for us not to be actively participating in oversight like we do, but because we had taken a decision when we started in the 7th administration that we are going to do as many oversight as possible. That's 1. 2, we have set a target based on our APP that there is a number of correctional facilities by the end of the 7th administration we should have done. So we will continue with oversight, but somewhere, somehow, we would be required from time to time to use our entitlements to be able to preserve the budget allocation that we're given. And that will allow us to be able to get a big chunk of delegation that goes to the study tour without anyone being left behind. So that is the basis why you are using your entitlement to fly to Nelspruit on Monday and fly out on Saturday to your respective constituencies or your respective homes. I thought I clarify that. So I'm not sure if there's anyone who wants to input on the program. If there isn't, then the program stays as a guide for the oversight for those who are going to the oversight.
Okay.
Babshangasi?
Yes, Chair. Yes, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'm not sure either it's the right time to communicate about the traveling
Please
of
communicate.
both of us, I myself and
Please,
Kasa. Okay.
please communicate with the committee secretary or communicate with me on the side. If it's
Okay,
regarding
no problem.
arrangements, yeah, please talk to us on the side.
No problem, Chair.
Thank you so much, Honorable Shangason. Okay, then we're fine.
Chair,
Yes, yeah.
I'm not sure if we are gonna have to go through the program quickly so
The
that
second
after
step
that,
is
yes, we then allow JICS to continue. Let me quickly go through that.
we're late for
Uh,
that.
Yeah. Quickly, in a summative manner. We have the following items jotted down for our second term program members. As you are aware, we've had a meeting on Tuesday, as it is now time for APPs and budget. And today we're having this meeting to deal with the APP of JICS and budget. And next week we're dealing with the oversight. That's the oversight week as allocated by the Parliament program. We're planning, as we have agreed as the committee, that from time to time we are not going to do a full-blown oversight in the Western Cape. We will bite it in pieces. We are planning to conduct a committee meeting in the Drakenstein Correctional Center, which is like not more than an hour away from where members are staying. When we come back that following week, so we will have a committee meeting at the center, inclusive of a small walkabout and a small oversight in the center, but it will be a full-blown committee meeting. So we will tender an item for that meeting that will be discussed in that meeting. On the 12th, we are going to be briefed by TCS on the review of prices of perishables. On the 13th, it will be members will have to debate the budget vote, the process that we're dealing with. On the 19th, and the status of the kitchens we've been visiting. We might include other kitchens, maybe based on the oversight we're taking. On the 26th, the progress on the state of the Western Cape and plans to address the challenges in the Western Cape. Remember, the Western Cape is having serious challenges. We therefore highlighted it and wanted to ensure that those challenges are finally dealt with. On the 2nd, remember, we are having one of our triple Ps being taken over by the department, their state of readiness in taking over the Mangaung Correctional Center. And in a long outstanding meeting on the 9th, to meet with the unions that are represented in the Department of Correctional Services. In the last meeting, remember we had a meeting with the state attorney in terms of the litigation against the department, but the state attorney's office didn't come prepared. We then sent him back and said that he needs to go back and prepare a comprehensive presentation on the issues we had. That is the last meeting we'll have. And obviously, we normally have our additional items. If we have to change any item, those I'm not going to go through the list on the additional items. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you so much, Sia. And colleagues, I think what you must note as well is that the program might change based on programming, how programming will do their program. So they have a tendency of their program affecting us. So in that instance, we'll have to adapt with those changes once they do them. But for now, I think this is the second program we had to do. The first one, we did it and made the submission. We had to change it based on the focus areas that the House Chairperson would have sent for us to align with, which is inclusive of having the oversight for next week. And that meant that we rework to this one. But as and when, again, there are matters that come before us, which are urgent and of emergency, we ought to find a way of putting them in the program, even though we have a standard approach of a second program. So I thought I add on those. So are we fine, members?
Noted, Chair.
Thank you so much, Honorable Shangase. So the second term program will then be our guide If there are no changes that emanates for us to change, then that's how we're going to follow the second term up until we get to recess, colleagues. So we will break for, I think, 10 minutes here to allow JICS to come in. We're late. Perhaps at 20 past 10, we can then start.
Noted, Chair. Let me allow JICS to come in. Finally, they've been waiting, Chair.
Okay, thanks, colleagues. 20 past will then start.
Good morning to the delegation of JICS. Our sincere apologies for allowing you late into the meeting. We had a slight delay on our internal business issues that we're currently finalizing. As you might be aware, we have an oversight coming. So we're finalizing the logistic issues around those issues. Our sincere apologies to the judge, the deputy minister, and the delegation of JICS as a whole. I would want to find out who is going to be flighting your presentation so we can test that system. And if you're not in one venue, maybe the judge and the CEO and whoever is going to present will have to test their audio, and we can check if there are any issues with their devices, so that if there are, we can quickly change that. We've been allocated a break to allow this to take place. The checking of devices and the sharing with the meeting will now start at 20 past 10. Our sincere apologies once again. Am I audible?
Loud and clear.
Yes, Reverend. Okay.
Yes. I think you can hear me. I'm also in the boardroom of JICS Cape Town office.
Yes, CEO, I can hear you. Are you going to be presenting from there?
No, I have my colleague. There's Judge on also. You see Judge there.
Judge.
Yes, good
My
morning. I hope I can be heard and seen. And yes, I
Yes,
will
Judge,
talk.
you are clear.
Excellent.
and the
Yes.
presentation will be done by my esteemed colleague, Mr. Nkade Meng. He is also on the platform. Maybe you could just give him an opportunity to share his screen with you so that he can
Yeah.
have the presentation on the screen. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, CEO. The presenter, can you speak and show your face so that when we are doing this, yeah, can give you permission to share. Permission
Good
to share has
morning.
been granted. Can you speak? Can we see your face?
Good morning. I'm not sure if you can be able to see me.
Yeah, you are clear.
Okay.
You
Good.
can share now. I've
Alright.
given you permission to share.
Okay. I'm sharing. I'm not sure if you can be able to see the presentation.
Yeah, can just move it. Or just test leadership, technology. Just move to the next slide. Yeah. Okay. No, we're good to go.
Okay.
You can remove it for now.
Okay.
Grab some coffee. We have 5 minutes left. Yeah.
All right.
And I think we are audible. Yeah. Once again, our sincere apologies for the delay to the entire delegation of the department and JICS. We will start at 20 past. Thank you.
Thank you.
So yeah, is everyone here?
Chair?
Sia?
Yes, Chair. Yeah, everyone is here, Chair. We've tested the audios and we're good to go.
Mathabat?
Yep.
I'm here, Chair.
Guys, is it me who's not audible or something is wrong?
We can hear you, Chair.
We can
can-
hear you, Chair, but
You're
it
audible,
was
Chair.
off for some time.
Yeah, but I've been calling Sia Mathabata, you're quiet.
No, I responded, Chair.
We responded, Chair.
It means it's on my side.
Yeah, no. Just make sure you're not on the Parliament network, Chair. That Parliament
I'm
network.
I'm in Parliament, I must be on their network.
It's remember our meeting Tuesday, what it was doing. That's why I decided to have this meeting from home because it's not stable.
A lot of things are not stable here. Is everyone here on JICS? DM, welcome.
Thank you, Chair.
Morning, Chair. Honorable members, we're also here. Judge is also there. You could see him. We are in the Cape Town office and we are on standby and ready for presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, CEO. Good morning, Inspecting Judge. DM, thank you for joining in. So you will assist who's also here outside from DCS. I see it's led by UTM. The minister is not here, or I might not be able to see.
Yes, Chair, we received the apology of the minister this morning, Chair, while we're in the meeting. When we're starting with our own committee business, he's not able to attend the committee meeting today due to conflicting commitments. We received it while we were in the meeting, Chair. And I think there are other officials from Mr. Killian. I saw Mr. Killian on the stream from the Office of the Minister. I think Mr. Fakude is here as well from the Office of the DM. There are officials from the department joining in, Chair, and officials from JICS.
Okay, thank you so much, members. We can then start with the meeting where we're going to receive the presentation with regards to JICS APP and its budget for 2026-2027 financial year. DM, we had started our meeting at 9 o'clock as members to have our own, to clean our house with adopting our minutes and our reports, all outstanding work that we ought to do or to process. And we sincerely apologize to both DM and JICS for starting the meeting quite late. We had agreed that you would join in at 9:30. We seem to have surpassed our time. So we do sincerely apologize on behalf of the committee and members to the DM and the inspecting judge, and then who are present on the virtual platform for us starting late, not on the agreed allocated time for us to be able to receive the presentation. I will then ask Honorable Engelbrecht to assist me in chairing the session. I'm in between 3 meetings. I've just concluded now a board meeting of pension fund, which I chair and which is a pension fund for all members or public office bearers. And I'm now expected to be in a workshop, an ad hoc workshop for Parliament in Good Hope. So I'll remain in the meeting and I will be on my headset. So I'll come in between the chairing of Honorable Engelbrecht, as I asked him to kindly also step in for me as he did when we're dealing with our own reports and minutes. So with that, I would then, DM, do you have anything you would want to say, or we go straightly to the inspecting judge and the team from JICS to take us through the APP? DM?
Morning, Chair. I can hear you, and let's allow the presentation by JICS, but I'm here. I'll be listening and I'll interact with the reports. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Inspecting Judge. I'll hand over to you and your team to be able to take us through. But whilst I hand over, Engel, please come through and be able to chair the session. Inspecting Judge, thank you.
Right. Good morning, Honourable Deputy Minister, Honourable Chairperson, Honourable members, and all others present on this platform. If you'll permit me, I just wish to make a few introductory remarks. We at JICS are very grateful for the opportunity to present our annual performance plan and budget for the 2026-2027 financial year. The annual performance plan sets out our targets, performance indicators, and key deliverables for the year ahead, all directed towards achieving our strategic objectives and upholding the rights and dignity of inmates. It's an essential instrument for JICS as it enables us to measure progress, monitor performance, and remain accountable. It also provides the Portfolio Committee with clear and tangible benchmarks against which to exercise oversight and ensure that we fulfill our functions. JICS continually strives through its oversight mandate to improve conditions within correctional centres and address recurring challenges such as overcrowding, the incarceration of state patients, aging infrastructure, violence, and high levels of recidivism. As we move forward, we recognise the need to develop tools to better assess the outcomes of our oversight efforts in addressing these issues over the short, medium, and long term. At times, certain challenges necessitate short-term solutions. For example, our recent engagements with the Department of Health regarding the incarceration of state patients, facilitated by the Portfolio Committee, I hasten to add. And we are pressing hard in this area following the Portfolio Committee's recent intervention, and we are making definite progress. Another short-term solution is the development of the bail fund, again, an area where we are making progress. It is, however, often the case that systemic issues require sustained, long-term, and multifaceted interventions for which no quick fix is available. Guided by various frameworks, JICS seeks to improve conditions of detention and safeguard the rights and dignity of inmates. Certain challenges continue to impede the achievement of these objectives, including delays in the finalization of the JICS bill, limited responsiveness at times, or cooperation from DCS in relation to our recommendations, as well as staff shortages and fiscal constraints. Despite these difficulties, JICS staff continues to work diligently towards our goals. As a result, we achieved most of our planned targets in the previous year and remained committed to doing so again in the year ahead. I would, however, like to highlight certain areas in which I believe we can improve. Greater emphasis should be placed on reporting on rehabilitation and reintegration programs within the correctional service, as these aspects are often underemphasized in inspections and reporting. Ideally, we would like to increase the number of correctional center inspections conducted annually, which currently stand at 150. In addition, 150. In addition, to that number, there are judicial inspections, including those in which I and members of my close team participate. This issue was discussed recently within the organization, but the consensus was that JICS does not presently have the capacity to effect more than 150 planned inspections per year. Although capacity constraints remain a challenge, innovative solutions should be explored, such as encouraging judges to undertake inspections in line with the One Judge, One Jail initiative. We would also like to fill all vacant ICCV posts, and we've made very good progress here in as much as there are only about 13 or a dozen posts which are currently vacant. We would also like to secure in future funding for future ICCV posts to strengthen the ICCV network. At present, there are 43 smaller correctional facilities which do not enjoy the services of a dedicated ICCV and are instead serviced by VCCOs, Visitors Committees Coordinating Officers. Lastly, we must strengthen our follow-up processes with DCS to ensure the effective implementation of our recommendations. In conclusion, let me say that JICS remains committed to fulfilling its mandate and to advance the correctional centers. We appreciate in this regard the continued support and oversight of this committee. Having made those introductory remarks, Honourable Chair, I'd like to hand over to our CEO, who will take the detail of the annual performance plan further. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge. With that, I would hand over to Mr. Vic Misa.
Good morning, Honourable Chair, and good morning, Honourable Stand-in Chair. Also to our Honourable members, the Honourable Deputy Minister, our Honourable Judge, and all colleagues on the platform. I greet you all on behalf of my organisation, the Judicial Inspectorate for Correctional Services. We put together a presentation. We've submitted this presentation, and I'm going to switch my camera off because of bandwidth, if you'd allow me, and continue to chat and then hand you over to my esteemed colleague, William, who will take you to the presentation. But before we do this, as we enter this new financial year, JICS remains very firmly focused on strengthening independent oversight to improve its operational efficiency and safeguarding our institutional independence in support of humane incarceration and accountability within the correctional system. Now, our work over this year has been structured around 3 core programs, and these programs are as embedded in our annual performance plan. Program 1, Administration. Program 2, Inspections and Compliance Monitoring. Program 3, Regional Coordination and Oversight. Now, Honourable Members, Honourable Chairpersons, the APP is aligned with the National Development Plan, particularly emphasizing on a capable and accountable state and protecting the human dignity of those inmates that are incarcerated there. It also supports the medium-term developmental plan, including the 3 national priorities by strengthening institutional capacity, accountability, and governance within the correctional environment. Now, this plan further articulates JICS' theory of change. It's one of the most important areas highlighted in our APP and as detailed on page 32 of the APP, which demonstrates how targeted inputs and oversight interventions translates into improved compliance, accountability, and most importantly, conditions in places of detention. Another area that I'd like to zoom in before we present is part D of the APP, which outlines the technical indicators and targets for all 3 programs, enabling effective performance monitoring and parliamentary oversight, especially our esteemed committee that we present to this morning. Now, before I hand over, let me reflect that JICS continues to commit to effective independent oversight in its services of constitutional values and the rights of inmates. We appreciate this committee's continued guidance and oversight and welcome your engagement on this presentation on this plan. Honourable Chair, Honourable Members, Honourable DM, and also Honourable Judge, let me welcome my esteemed colleague from my office, Mr. William Nkadimeng, to take you through the presentation. William, please come in. Thank you.
Thank you so much, CEO, for the introduction. Good morning, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable members of the Portfolio Committee, Honorable Deputy Minister, Honorable Judge Lee Bozalek, and colleagues. As they have mentioned, my name is William Nkadimeng. Thank you for the opportunity to present the Judicial Inspectorate for Correctional Service Annual Performance Plan for 2026 that JICS officials and the Audit Committee, in consultation with the DPME, have worked on it and crafted it together. So looking at this presentation, the presentation reflects our commitment as JICS to strengthen independent oversight, improving conditions in correctional facilities, and ensuring the protection of inmates' rights and human dignity. I'm not sure. Can you be able to see the presentation that I'm sliding? I'm beaming.
Yes, it is
we can
presented.
see.
Okay.
I think you should put it on slide mode, though.
Yes. Is it on slide mode now?
It is.
Okay. The purpose of the presentation, firstly, is to present our planned performance, strategic objectives, and targets for the 2026-2027 financial year. And secondly, it's also to demonstrate how JICS will enhance oversight, accountability, and compliance within correctional centers. And thirdly, it's also to support the committee in fulfilling its constitutional and oversight responsibility through transparent reporting on our outputs, outcomes, and resource allocations. As the CEO has mentioned, our annual performance plan 2026-27 is aligned with the National Development Plan 2030 and the Medium-Term Development Plan, contributed to a capable and ethical state. If we zoom into slide 3, which talks to our vision, our mission, our vision as JICS. Our vision is responsive oversight, protecting human dignity, while our mission as JICS is to independently monitor conditions, uphold human rights for all in the correctional environment without fear, favor, or prejudice. And also, we are guided by our principal values, which our principal values is mandated to ensure that the correctional environment in South Africa upholds human dignity, fair treatment, and equality to ensure personal transition back to society that contributes to socio-economic upliftment. We are guided by the values of transparency, respect, equality, dignity, and accountability. These values are central to ensuring that correctional environments promote fair treatment and successful integration back into society. Now, on the next slide, which talks to constitutional mandate, JICS derives its authority from the Constitution, particularly the Bill of Rights, Chapter 2. Our role is to ensure that detainees' rights are protected, including human dignity and freedom from torture, access to health care, nutrition, and also legal processes, communication with family and representatives. We specifically also oversees compliance within Section 5 and uphold principles of ethical public administration under Section 195. This mandate positions JICS as a critical oversight and safeguard within the justice system. Moving to the next slide, which talks to the legislative mandate. Our legislative mandate is derived from the Correctional Service Act of 1998, strengthened by the 2023 Amended Act. This amendment has enhanced our financial and operational independence, designated the CEO as the accounting officer, expanded mandatory reporting requirements, including deaths, assaults, torture, and also escapes. So these reforms significantly strengthen JICS' ability to hold the systems accountable. So we're going to zoom into our the key strategic priorities of JICS. So we have centered our the strategic objectives for 2024-2029 period aligned with the government's broader agenda of building a capable, ethical, and developmental state, while ensuring that correctional systems contribute meaningful to social and economic outcomes. We have structured our priorities in 3 key areas, which priority 1 talks to inclusive growth and job creation. Our priority 2 talks to reduce poverty and cost of living, while priority 3 is a capable, ethical, and developmental state. Now, zooming into priority 1, JICS contributes to inclusive growth primarily through institutional transformation and empowerment initiatives. In this regards, we are strengthening equity and transformation by prioritizing the inclusion of youth, women, and persons with disability within our workforce and programs. Through our procurement to stimulate participation in the economy, we are actually compliant with regards to the triple BEE. We are also implementing internships and capacity building programs, which not only build internal capabilities, but contribute to the skills development nationally. While JICS is not direct job creation agency, our role is to ensure that the correctional system contributes to a more inclusive and equitable society, which is foundation to sustainable economic growth. And zooming into the priority 2, which talks to reduce poverty and cost of living. Our second priority recognizes that correctional oversight is directly linked to social and economic stability. We contribute by promoting rehabilitation and reintegration of inmates, ensuring that inmates are prepared to re-enter society as productive citizens through recidivism. Supporting access to skills development and job training programs within the correctional centers, playing a role in reducing recidivism, the cost burden of the state, and also ensuring that inmates have access to healthcare and basic services, which is both constitutional obligations and a societal need. By improving conditions and supporting rehabilitation, we help break the cycle of poverty and marginalization. Now, looking into priority 3, which is a capable and ethical developmental state. This priority goes to the core of JICS mandate. Our focus is on strengthening governance and accountability within correctional services by enhancing independent oversight for correctional facilities, investigating complaints thoroughly and addressing misconduct and maladministration, improving transparency through credible evidence-based reporting, and also promoting safe, secure, and human detention conditions in line with the constitutional and international standards. Through these interventions, JICS contributes directly to building a correctional system that is lawful, accountable, and right-based. Together, they position JICS as a key institution in advancing just, humane, and effective correctional systems in South Africa. Now, JICS organizational structure. The inspecting judge is supported by the CEO, who serves as the accounting officer and is responsible for the administration, performance management, and overall operations and execution of the organization. Now, what you see here is the approved structure, which consists of 5 directorates. While the 5 directorates have been presented here, I just wanted to just alert that with regards to the inspections and investigation, it's a directorate that has not been formulated as yet. It is in the pipeline, but this is the approved structure for the department. So to effectively deliver our mandate, JICS is structured into those 5 directorates, which is corporate services, financial management, inspections and investigations, complaints and mandatory reporting, and also the regional management. This structure will enable JICS to balance strategic leadership with operational delivery, ensuring that oversight is not only effective at a national level, but also responsive and accessible at facility level. It positions the organization to deliver on its mandate efficiently, accountably, and with integrity. Now, this is the overview of our structure, the Honorable Chairperson, members of the Portfolio Committee. To deliver on its for JICS to deliver on its constitutional mandate and the legislative mandate, JICS is structured into 3 core programs, each playing a distinct but interrelated role in ensuring oversight for correctional services. So for Program 1, this program provides institutional backbone of JICS. It includes human resources, strategic management, which drives planning, performance monitoring, and governance and risk management, and also finance, and also information technology. Without strong administrative foundation, the organization would not be able to deliver credible and effective oversight. This program ensures that JICS remains a functional, accountable, and high-performing institution. Now, when we look into Program 2, this program presents the core oversight function of JICS. It consists of 2 sub-programs, which talks to inspections and investigations and complaints and mandatory, where inspections and investigations, where we conduct both unannounced and announced inspections for correctional facilities and investigate incidents affecting inmates. And sub-program complaints and mandatory reporting ensures that inmates' complaints are properly recorded, analyzed, and referred, and all the statutory reports such as theft, assaults, and other incidents are monitored and addressed. Through this program, JICS provides independent evidence-based oversight and legislative standards. And then we look into Program 3, which is the regional coordination and oversight. This program ensures that oversight is decentralized, accessible, and responsive at the operational level. It focuses on the operations, particularly the coordination and support of the ICCVs across all regions. ICCVs serves as the point of contact of inmates, capturing complaints, monitoring conditions, and facilitating resolutions through established mechanisms such as visitors committee meetings. This program ensures that oversight is not only strategic, but also visible and effective on the ground. Now we look into the budget overview for 2026 financial year. Our total budget that was allocated to us when we were doing our annual performance plan was 126 million that was allocated to us, but later they were able to actually add an additional 3 million that was added to our budget, which brought our total budget for 2026 financial year to 129 million. So in terms of the budget per program, Program 1 was is administration. It was allocated the 53 million initially, and when the additional 3 million was added, it went to Program 1, which is administration, which led to the reviewing of our budget there, which amounted to 57 million. While Program 2, inspections and compliance monitoring, it is sitting at 23 million. And Program 3, which is regional coordination and oversight, which sits at 49 million. On the economic classification, compensation of employees, majority of the budget actually falls within the compensation of employees, while the operational costs on goods and services through the inspections, investigations, travel, and ICT also is allocated on that budget. Now we come to the core in terms of the work that actually we do, which talks to our performance indicators and targets. So zooming into Program 1, the slide outlines the key human resource performance targets under Program 1, which aims to build a functional and high-performing institution. Looking into the first output indicator, which talks to the percentage of women representation, management services, the SMS, it's targeted at 50% in the 2026-2027 financial year through the MTEF period. We are committed to achieving and maintaining 50% representation of women the MTEF period. This reflects our alignment with gender equality and transformation objectives, the need to ensure inclusive leadership within the organization. This target is central to build a leadership cohort that reflects the demographics and values of our society. Output indicator number 2, which talks to the percentage representation of persons with disability. It's sitting at 2%. We have set the target at 2% to ensure that, which aligns with the minimum national targets. We recognize that there is a need for progressively improve inclusion beyond compliance. We must ensure that the workplace is accessible and supportive of even persons with disability. We are therefore strengthening recruitment and retention strategies in this area. Output indicator number 3, which talks to the percentage representation of youth in the department, which is set at 30%. This is important to support the skills development and succession planning, build a pipeline of future leaders within JICS. and also contribute to broader national efforts to address youth unemployment, because it is a big issue currently in our country. And also output indicator, percentage of vacancy rate maintained at 10% or lower. We aim to maintain a vacancy rate of 10% or below. This is critical performance indicator because high vacancy rates directly impact our ability to deliver on oversight functions. And also it also ensures that stability and continuity in operations are there. However, we must note that this target is influenced by budget constraints and approval of the organizational structure, which remains an ongoing challenge. So on the next slide, it actually outlines the targets under strategic management, finance, and also the information technology, which collectively ensures that JICS remains a well-governed, accountable, and efficient institution. So zooming into the sub-program strategic management, we have our first output indicator talking to percentage of AGSA audit findings result by the end of the financial year, which we have set the target at 100%. We have committed to resolving at 100%, which reflects that our commitment to achieving clean governance outcomes, continuous improvement in internal controls and risk management. This target is critical in ensuring that JICS maintains credibility and public trust. And also the next output indicator is the percentage of designated employees, SMS and other categories who have submitted financial disclosures within timeframes, which is sitting at 100%. This is important to promote ethical conduct and transparency, prevent conflict of interest, strengthen organizational integrity. This measure reinforces a culture of accountability at all levels of the institution itself. So while we look into that, we look into the sub-program finance, which our output indicator, it's on the valid invoices paid within 30 working days, which we have set it at 100%. Under finance, our target is to ensure that all valid invoices are paid within 30 working days. This is critical to ensure our compliance with the National Treasury regulations, support small businesses and service providers, and also enhance JICS' reputation as a reliable and responsible public institution. Timely payments are not only a compliance issue, but they also contribute to the economic stability and trust in government systems. And then also on the sub-program information technology, which talks to our output indicator is the number of initiatives implemented as per the ICT strategy. In this area, we aim to implement our 4 key initiatives annually, aligned with our ICT strategy. These initiatives are focused on strengthening data management and reporting systems, enhancing digital oversight capabilities, improving efficiency in inspection complaints, and also communication. Our ICT is increasingly central to enabling real-time, evidence-based oversight and improving institutional responsibility. So looking into the MTEF budget for Program 1, our 2026-2027 budget, it was allocated at 53 million, while they have an additional amount. So when we were compiling the APP, it was still at the 53 million, but the 57 million, the 3 million that was added, it have been allocated to administration. So looking into that, we can go to the economic classification. The majority of is allocated to compensation of employees, confirming the labor intensity nature of our work. Goods and services support operational requirements, including ICT and also administration. So most of the budget is allocated there. Overall, the budget is structured to ensure strong governance, institutional capacity, and efficient service delivery within the constraint of physical environment. So our performance indicators and targets in the Program 2, inspections and compliance. So in inspections and compliance, Program 2 represents the core oversight function of JICS in central of fulfilling our constitution mandate for protecting the rights and dignity of inmates. So zooming into our first indicator, which talks to the number of inspections conducted as per the JICS National Inspections Plan, which the inspecting judge has made mention of the 150 of the 2026-2027 MTEF period. We plan to conduct the 150 inspection annually, increasing it to 160 in the outer years, looking into the 2028-2029 financial year. If we have the resources that can be able to assist us in terms of carrying out the work. These inspections, both unannounced and announced, conducted across all correctional facilities, including the public-private partnership centers. The purpose is to assess conditions of detention, monitor compliance with legislation and standards, identify system risk and areas requiring interventions. Inspection remain our primary tool for ensuring visibility and accountability within correctional facilities. And zooming into our output indicator, percentage of reported incidents investigated within 90 days. We have set our targets to 70%. These incidents include those defined under Section 95 of the Correctional Service Act, such as assault, use of force, segregations, and other matters affecting inmates' treatment and conditions. While 70% targets reflect current capacity constraints, it is designed to ensure timely response to serious incidents, strengthen accountability mechanisms, improve quality and credibility of investigations. And now, our next output indicator talks to the reporting of the percentage of reported unnatural death in correctional facilities received and confirmed, which is set at 100%. JICS is mandated to monitor all death in custody, thereof 100% reporting of confirmations of unnatural death, and also 100% reporting of confirmation of natural death. This is critical to ensuring transparency and accountability, detect possible system failures and human rights violations, and also provide assurance of Parliament and the public at large. And also looking into the percentage of complaints received, analyzed, and referred within 60 days to the relevant stakeholders. The aim is to ensure that 70% of complaints are analyzed, reported, and referred within 60 days. This includes complaints received from inmates, correctional officials, and other stakeholders. The process ensures that complaints are not only recorded, but acted upon, that there is feedback and accountability, that systematic issues are identified and addressed. So looking into the MTEF budget for Program 2, Inspections and Compliance Monitoring, as I have mentioned, that for 2026-2027, our budget has been set at 23 million to be able to carry out the work in terms of the legal and operational special operations within Program 2, Inspections and Compliance Monitoring. While most of the budget in most of the programs, most of the budget falls under the compensation of employees, while the 3 million is budgeted for goods and services within that 2026-2027 financial year. So looking into our final performance indicator and targets of Program 3, the regional coordination and oversight. The output indicator talks to the number of inmate complaints recorded and referred to DCS monthly. So in terms of that, this reflects the scale of engagement within the correctional facilities and the accessibility of JICS to inmates, the importance of having a functional complaint system at facility level. This target is not just about volume; it is about ensuring that complaint is captured, processed, and escalated where necessary. Now, the second output indicator talks to the percentage of unresolved inmates complaints dealt with at the VC meetings and referred to the relevant stakeholders. We aim to ensure that 100% of unresolved inmate complaints are addressed through visitors committee meetings. These meetings bring together key stakeholders, including correctional officials and oversight bodies, provide a structured platform to resolve complaints that cannot be addressed at facility level, and also strengthen accountability and interinstitutional coordination. This process ensures that no complaint remains unattended and thus there is continuous follow-up through and resolutions are there. So the MTEF budget for Program 3, Regional Coordination and Oversight, it is set at 49 million for the operations of for 2026-2027 financial year, which on the economic classification, most of the budget also goes to compensation of employees as well, which is sitting at 44 million, while the goods and services is sitting at 4 million. So the risk and mitigation with regards to our APP and also the JICS operations. JICS operation in a complex and resource-constrained environment, and we have identified several key risks that may impact our ability to fully deliver on our mandate. Importantly, for each risk, we have put in place targeted mitigations measures to ensure continuity, stability, and improved performance. The first one, which is inability to acquire, develop, and retain critical skills. Our mitigation talks to reviewing and aligning our organizational structure with the MTDP, developing a comprehensive human resource management strategy, and also conducting a skills audit and implementing target training and development programs. These measures are aimed at building a capable and sustainable workforce. Our second key risk talks to the increased stress due to high workload. The nature of our work, particularly inspections, investigations, and complaints handling, places significant pressure on staff. To address this, we are implementing an employee wellness program to support staff well-being, utilizing contract employees where necessary to address capacity gaps, and also implementing a workplace skills to improve efficiency and productivity. These interventions are essential to maintaining staff performance and organizational resilience. And our third one risk is outdated ICT infrastructure. Effective oversight increasingly depends on reliable and modern information. We have identified outdated ICT infrastructure as a key risk and are responding by developing and implementing an ICT strategy and supporting policies, also strengthening ICT systems and cybersecurity measures, and also establishing an ICT help desk and steering committee to improve governance and support. This will enhance our ability to deliver data-driven, efficient, and responsive oversight for the JICS. And also the fourth one is the negative audit outcomes. Maintaining strong audit outcomes is critical for institutional credibility. To mitigate this risk, we are implementing a structured audit action plan, also strengthening internal controls and compliance processes, ensuring also regular reporting to the audit committee, and also ensuring that enhancing accountability through the key responsibility areas. These measures are aimed at achieving and sustaining clean governance outcomes. Now, moving right along on more of the key risk, lack of cooperation from stakeholders as well. A key risk is limited or delayed cooperation from stakeholders, particularly in accessing information or implementing recommendations. To mitigate this, we are establishing a memorandum of understanding with key stakeholders, including the Department of Correctional Services, to ensure that they can be able to assist us, because some of the work that we carry out, most of the work that we carry out as JICS depends on the Department of Correctional Services. Strengthening also inter-institutional coordination and accountability mechanisms. This will ensure improved information sharing, responsiveness, and implementation for corrective actions. Also, the other one is undermining of JICS independence. Maintaining independence is a fundamental for the credibility of JICS. There is a risk that the independence may be perceived to be compromised or practically undermined. To address this, we are implementing personnel rotation in sensitive areas, and also enforcing declarations of independence and objectivity by staff. These measures are designed to safeguard the integrity, impartiality, and credibility of our oversight work. The next one, which is skills gap in complex investigations. The increasing complexity of cases, particularly those involving serious incidents and systematic failures, require specialized expertise. To mitigate this risk, we are providing specialized training for investigations and also strengthening the capacity building initiatives in key technical areas. And the next one is the incomplete mandatory reporting. Incomplete or delayed reporting of mandatory incidents such as death, assaults, or escapes poses a significant risk to oversight effectiveness. To address this, we are strengthening verification processes for correctional centers, improving monitoring systems to ensure compliance with reporting requirements. And the last one, which is reputational risk of misinformation and delays. With regards to that, JICS also faces reputational risk arising from misinformation, delays in reporting, and perception of ineffective oversight. To mitigate this, we are implementing proactive communication strategies, ensuring transparent and timed reporting, also strengthening governance frameworks and stakeholder engagement. Now, if we zoom in into the priorities of the 2026-2027, are focused on strengthening the effectiveness, credibility, and impact of JICS as an independent oversight body. These priorities are aligned with our mandate and respond directly to the challenges within the correctional systems. The first one being the strong oversight and accountability. Our foremost priority is to enhance independent oversight and accountability across all correctional services. Our second one is the improved protection of inmates' rights and dignity. We remain committed to safeguard the constitutional rights and human dignity of all inmates. Number three, it's the better compliance and conditions in correctional facilities. We aim to improve conditions of detention and overall compliance with the legislation and policy requirements. Number four is the enhanced transparency and systems performance. Transparency remains critical to building public trust and institutional capabilities. And number five is the contribution to a capable and ethical state. Ultimately, our priorities contribute to building a capable and ethical and developmental state. Through our work, we strengthen our governance with correctional service facilities. So in closing, the JICS remains firmly committed to independent oversight and protection of human dignity. The success of this annual performance plan will depend on the adequate resources, a strong stakeholder cooperation, and continued support from from Parliament. We reaffirm our commitment to supporting this committee and the committee in ensuring ensuring accountability within the correctional service facilities. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Minister, Deputy Minister, Honorable members of the Portfolio Committee, the Inspecting Judge, and the CEO for trusting me to be able to present the presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nkadimeng. CEO, is there anything from your side that you wish to add? Mr. Misa?
You are muted, CEO.
No, thank you so much, Honorable Chair and Honorable members. Judge, I think it was quite a detailed presentation. I think Mr. Nkadimeng has taken them through the whole presentation in good time and also in detail so that all members could grasp all the activities of JICS, specifically in relation to the three programs that we envisage to present through this esteemed committee over the next performance cycle. Judge, from my side, I have no further additions. I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Judge, from your side, anything?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. No, nothing from my side. I think Mr. Nkadimeng has done a very good job and given a lot of detail. So we'll leave it there for the time being. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then, members, you heard the presentation, and I now open the floor to you for any questions. Let me just open my thing that I can see your hands. I've got Honorable Niehaus, Honorable Klute, sorry, I'm not so good with technology. Yes, is that all? I've got Honorable Niehaus and Honorable Klute. And is there anyone that can't raise their hand, but Okay, yes, thank you. I see you now, Honorable Muela and Honorable, let me just see here, Notandulu. Yes, so in that order, please proceed. Honorable Nias.
Thank you, Honorable Acting Chair, and let me thank JICS for this rather detailed presentation, and I acknowledge the presence of the inspecting judge, Judge Bozalek, and also the CEO of JICS, Mr. Misser, and the Deputy Minister. Acting Chair, as I've said many times before, the work that JICS is doing is of utmost importance. And one would always like to engage with the work of JICS and reports such as this annual performance plan in as positive a manner as possible. So for me, it is regrettable that I must be quite critical of the 73-page annual performance plan that had been presented to us, and also this PowerPoint presentation by Mr. Nkadimeng. Because my concerns are very real about how JICS is performing and the lack of vision that I see in this annual performance plan. We've gone through the various documents in detail, and it is for me a clear demonstration of a continuation of systemic organizational failure on the side of JICS to provide effective, independent oversight to South Africa's correctional system. These documents, and specifically the annual performance plan, expose chronic under-resourcing, persistent underspending, and I fear low ambition targets. And most disconcerting, an inability to translate constitutional mandates into clear, measurable improvements in inmate dignity and safety. Now, if we look at Q3 of 2025-2026, in the performance review and budget breakdown, it confirms that JICS remains severely constrained, with real-term growth of only 3.5%, a recurring financial mismanagement, and unaddressed structural weaknesses. There are some operational outputs that were achieved, but the overall picture is one of bureaucratic incrementalism that fails to confront overcrowding, unnatural deaths, assaults, torture, and systemic non-compliance by the Department of Correctional Services. I can identify a couple of positive aspects in this annual performance plan, but I fear that I must describe them as mostly cosmetic. On the operational delivery in Q3 for 2025-26, it must be noted that all 24 planned announced inspections were completed, plus there were still 3 outstanding. 197 complaints were fully processed, 35 unnatural and 106 natural deaths were reported, processed, and the regional coordination exceeded quarterly ROC targets. The vacancy rate improved by 9.52%, with 304 to 336 posts filled, and 50% women representation at the SMS level was maintained. The modest budget shifts towards oversight. In Program 2, we can see inspections and compliance monitoring increased by 22 0.87% nominally, which is 23.1 million rand. And on program 3, which is the regional coordination and oversight, it rose to 14.58%, which translates into 49.5 million rands. Supporting planned growth in inspections from 150 in the period from 2025 to 2026 to a planned 160 by 2028-29, and investigation mandating growing from 80% to 90%. As far as equity and governance targets are concerned, the new HR indicators in Program 1 is 30% for youth and 2% for persons with disabilities, and 100% compliance on audit findings, on financial disclosures, supplier payments demonstrate basic transformation and a basic commitment to administrative regulations. On the constitutional and policy alignment, the presentation correctly grounds JICS in section 35.2 in terms of the rights and the Nelson Mandela rules and the MTDP priorities, while the 2023 Amendment Act's independence provisions are also acknowledged. Now, all of this, as far as I'm concerned, represents the absolute minimum that should be expected of any oversight body, and unfortunately, it does not address the scale of the crisis that we face in the Department of Correctional Services. The negative aspects overwhelms the positive, and it is systemic government and organizational failure. When one does a proper analysis of this annual performance plan, it lays bare deep and recurring deficiencies. There's an inadequate real-term funding. The total 2026-27 allocation is 129.8 million, but that means only a 4.3 million in real terms growth, which is 3.57%. As far as Program 1 administration is concerned, the largest component, it decreases by 2 million, nominally to a 3.9 million real decrease of 6.56%. Over 66% of the MTEF budget is consumed by compensation of employees, leaving the front line of JICS and oversight staffed. Chronic underspending and financial mismanagement. On Q3 in 2025-26, the expenditure reached only 64.86% against what has been set as a 75% target. So this is 10.14% underspending, driven by recurring compensation of employees' shortfalls, with 6.79% deviation from vacancies, and goods and services delays with 12.99% deviation. Now, the issue of underspending with regards to employment is one that we as a committee have raised several times. JICS has always given us all kinds of reasons why this is the case. But I think we've truly now reached the point where this issue is becoming critical and it can no longer be explained away. In contrast, there is massive overspending on transfers and subsidies. A massive 253.84% of overspending, and it stems from litigation and a 514,160,000 rand arbitration award. These patterns, personal delays and system implementation issues have persisted across many financial quarters. For me, one of the biggest problems is the sense of low ambition that one gets in this annual performance plan. Output only KPIs lacking enforcement or outcomes. Only 150 inspections planned annually for 240 plus facilities. And the inspecting judge did refer to this, and I'm glad that he expressed at least an ambition to do more inspections, but I do not find any reason in this annual performance plan to believe that this will be the case, because we consistently are confronted with financial constraints, as it is stated also in the PowerPoint presentation. 70% resolution targets implicitly accept that there's a 30% failure rate on mandatory Section 95D reports. This covers deaths, assaults, segregation, and torture. There are no income indicators for reductions in unnatural deaths, assaults, or the Department of Correctional Services implementation of recommendations. There's also, for me, very disconcerting, the unexplained omission of the percentage of instructions issued to the state attorney. Unresolved organizational weaknesses. We must look at how the annual performance plan glosses over or even omits 2025-2026 issues flagged by us as a portfolio committee. The lack of a permanent CFO, dependency on the Department of Correctional Services for still some office accommodation, the high ICCV turnover, inadequate staff support in volatile environments, organizational culture and synergy problems between directorates and regions, and budgetary constraints blocking full NGC structure implementation. No clear retention or career progression strategy beyond the entry-level ICCV posts. The risk of independence and effectiveness is one that must continue to be flagged. Engagement with NGOs and NPOs, some with unknown funding, with international MOUs and ongoing stakeholder non-cooperation, raise questions of perceived influence. The declining administration budget alongside rising targets continue to undermine delivery confidence. Broader failure exists to link oversight to a victim-centric, effective criminal justice system that perpetuates public perceptions that our prisons prioritize inmate rights over societal safety. So, from the perspective of the economic freedom fighters, these documents, and specifically the annual performance plan, continue to exemplify for us governmental organizational inertia. Even in the presentation of the PowerPoint today, we get rhetoric about dignity and oversight. Without resources, without adequate powers or accountability mechanisms that are needed to force systemic change or to address the continuing perpetuating problem of the warehousing of the poor. Now, let me turn to my questions. Why does the 2026-2027 real-term budget growth remain a mere 3.5%, with Program 1 administration actually decreasing by 3.9 million, when the humanitarian crisis demands substantially more resources for effective oversight of 240 plus facilities? This is an issue, obviously, that must also be addressed to the Department of Correctional Services and to the Fiscus. But this perpetual underfunding is untenable if JICS wants to carry out its duties. Why has JICS recorded persistent underspending on the compensation of employees and goods and services across all three quarters from 2025-26, culminating in a 10.14% overall underspend, while massively overspending on litigation and arbitration awards? And this is an issue that we did raise in the past as a portfolio committee with JICS. We even made some proposals on how we believe the issue of litigation with the department should be addressed. Sadly, the annual performance plan does not provide any answers to those concerns that we have expressed. With only 150 inspections planned for the 2026-2027 year, how many correctional centers will remain uninspected for many, many years? And this will simply allow continued violations of inmate rights with impunity. Why are investigation and complaint resolution targets set at the very modest, mediocre level of 70%, which means that you are effectively tolerating a built-in 30% failure rate on mandatory reports of deaths, assaults, segregation, and torture? Why does the annual performance plan contain no outcome-based KPIs for reductions in unnatural deaths, official on inmate assaults, or the percentage of JICS recommendations actually implemented by the Department of Correctional Services? Again, an issue that I myself and other members of the portfolio committee have raised before. What is the actual percentage of recommendations made by JICS implemented by DCS? We note the unexplained omission of the percentage of instructions issued to the state attorney indicator in the annual performance plan. Why was this indicator removed? And what does that indicate about transparency and legal enforcement capacity? Given the ongoing high ICCV turnover, with no permanent chief financial officer and dependency on DCS for office accommodation still in many areas, what is JICS' concrete retention strategy and plan for career progression beyond what is simply the entry-level posts? Again, I come to my 8th question, which is one that I've asked several times before of JICS. What specific emotional, operational, and professional support is provided to JICS staff operating in volatile correctional environments? And how has the previously acknowledged weakness in organizational culture and inter-directorate synergy been resolved? What measurable progress has JICS made since the 2025 inaugural annual performance plan in securing stakeholder cooperation and resolving office accommodation dependencies with other government departments? We raised some of those issues One of them that we have discussed and which was also raised by JICS itself was the offices in East London. How does JICS safeguard its institutional independence while engaging with NGOs and NPOs that may receive funding from unknown sources? And what are the legal and operational implications of the international MOUs that you've signed in 2025-26? My last question, with a declining administration budget and increased performance targets, how confident is JICS really that it can deliver and can deal with what radical legislative safeguards are required, including direct NPA referral powers and contempt sanctions against non-compliant Department of Correctional Services officials? Is it formally requesting from this committee what assistance in order to have these radical legislative safeguards? So I want to conclude by making a couple of comments about interventions that I believe are required by the Portfolio Committee in relation to JICS. I believe the Portfolio Committee must demand the following immediate and time-bound interventions from JICS. And I do so specifically on the basis, as I said in my introductory remarks, as I started to raise these issues, that I believe that this annual performance plan is pedestrian, it doesn't show vision, and it doesn't give us the sense of commitment that there will be real progressive change and real addressing of the issues that I've raised. We need a detailed, costed plan to eliminate recurring underspending. We need to get now a proper plan from you about how you will fill all the vacancies, because you keep on coming back telling us about these vacancies, but they are not filled, including also the appointment of a permanent CFO and implement a full NGC structure. We need quarterly reports on DCS implementation rates of the JICS recommendations. The issue that I raised earlier, that we don't have those indicators, which makes it difficult for us to understand how seriously the Department of Correctional Services actually takes the recommendations from JICS. And there must be clear escalation mechanisms for non-compliance to those recommendations. We need a submission of a comprehensive retention and career progression strategy for ICCVs and core staff, including also emotional support protocols. We need full disclosure on all NGO and NPO partnerships that JICS has entered into, including international MOUs and litigation expenditures. We need an urgent engagement with the National Treasury for a supplementary allocation to help JICS to achieve meaningful real-term growth, specifically in programs 2 and 3, ring-fenced for inspections, investigations, and enforcement. And we need legislative proposals to strengthen JICS's powers, prosecutorial referrals, contempt sanctions, and eventually, I believe, even an independent budget vote for the 2027-2028 financial year adjustments. So from the side of the EFF, we will continue to raise with concern these systematic failures that I've just referred to. And we demand real dramatic increase in resources, in enforceable powers, and a radical shift from punitive warehousing of the poor to genuine rehabilitation and economic emancipation of the poor. This report, this annual performance plan by JICS, does not meet this criteria. And therefore, unfortunately, from the side of the economic freedom fighters, we must express our disappointment with this APP. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Nehaus. Honorable Klute, you are next. Thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you, Acting Chair. Allow me to make camera must remain off because of the connectivity. Firstly, also allow me to greet the honorable members, delegation of JICS and the Deputy Minister and all protocol observed. Also allow me to welcome the presentations that was presented by JICS. I will go straight to my questions, Chair. JICS has operated without a permanent CFO since it became an NGC. Given the increased governance and financial management obligations of an NGC, what are the specific steps being taken to fill the post permanently, and what are the anticipated timeline for appointment? The APP states that the new ICT strategy commits to 4 initiatives per year. What are the specific 4 initiatives planned for 2026, 2027? How will they measurably improve JICS oversight capacity? The APP commits to placing greater emphasis on rehabilitation programs during the inspection cycle. How will the commitment be operationalized within the National Inspection Plan? Will specific inspection indicators for rehabilitation quality be introduced, and if so, what will they measure? The goods and service budgets for Program 3 is projected to decrease from 4.5 million in the 2026 and 2027 to 2.5 million in the 2027 and 2028, a reduction of about 44.4, given the Program 3 is responsible for regional operations such as visitors, committee meetings, stakeholders, engagements, and ICCVs, supports across the entire country. How will effective regional coordination be maintained within the declining operational budget? My last question, Chair, is that the lack of cooperation from the key stakeholders and dependency on other government departments for office accommodation have been cited as weaknesses since JICS inaugural 2025-2026 APPs. What specific engagements has JICS undertaken with the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure since the 25-26 APPs was presented? What is the current status of office accommodation for each of JICS regional office, and what is the timeline for resolutions? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Klute. That was short and sweet. Next up, we have Honorable Nolochungu. The floor is yours. Thank you very much. Honorable Nolochungu from the EFF.
Thank you, Chair. Greetings to the judge, the representation from JICS, and the honorable members. and also to the Deputy Minister. Chairperson, the issue of independence is the foundation upon which the credibility of JICS stands or falls. JICS operates within a system where it must oversee the Department on Correctional Services, yet still depends on that same system for access, cooperation, information, and in many instances, responsiveness to its findings. The risk here is an oversight body that is formally independent but functionally constrained. The question is, can JICS demonstrate which concrete examples from the past year where its independence enabled it to act decisively against DCS non-compliance, and what actually happens when DCS ignores JICS findings? On the APP targets, we fully support the transformation targets in this APP. The representation of women, youth, and persons with disabilities is not something it is not a negotiable principle. But the question before us is slightly different. It is about what this APP ultimately measures as success. At the moment, a large part of the targets speak to internal compliance, governance, processes, and institutional housekeeping. Those are necessary. No one disputes that. But JICS is not an ordinary department. It exists because something is wrong inside correctional services. So the real test is not only whether the institution is compliant internally, but whether it works in changing conditions where it matters most. How does JICS ensure that its current targets translate to real measurable improvements in inmate conditions and safety beyond internal compliance? Is there room within this APP to strengthen outcome indicators so that Parliament can clearly see whether violations are actually declining over time? Looking at the investigation targets, the APP says 70% of incidents will be investigated within 90 days. It means that where people are at their most vulnerable inside correctional centers, 30% of serious incidents may not be investigated within a reasonable time, and these violations may continue. The 30% is not merely a statistic, and the 30% gap in investigating serious incidents is not just a capacity issue, it is a justice issue. What exactly accounts for this 30% gap, and what immediate steps are being taken to ensure that no serious incidents fall through the cracks of delayed investigations? Complaint handling, we note the significant volume of complaints handled by JICS, and that speaks to the trust inmates place in the institution. But complaints cannot become a bureaucratic exercise of receiving, recording, and referring. We want to emphasize that the value of the system lies in what happens after the complaint is lodged. It must lead to accountability and change inside the correctional center. Otherwise, we risk creating a system where inmates speak, but nothing moves. Chairperson, the total budget is 129,793 million after the additional 3.6 million. Program 1, which is administration, receives 53.53. Program 2, inspections and compliance monitoring, received 23.8 million. And Program 3, regional coordination and oversight, received 49.5 million. The concern is that the core investigative function appears under-resourced. If that is the case, Program 2 Is Program 2 adequately funded to conduct serious investigation across the country, or is JICS becoming administratively compliant but operationally weak? Again, JICS identify risks, serious risks, inability to acquire and retain critical skills, high workload stress, outdated ICT, negative audit outcomes, lack of stakeholder cooperation, undermining of JICS independence, skills gaps in complex investigations, incomplete mandatory reporting, and reputational risks. These risks are at the center of whether JICS can function. Which risk is currently the most serious to JICS doing its jobs? And can you give a clear example where your independence was undermined, by whom and how? What proof does JICS have that DCS is complying with mandatory reporting, and where it is not, what consequences have actually followed? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Luchungu. Next up is Honorable Sam Muela.
Thank you very much, the chairperson of the session. Let me take this opportunity to greet DM Minister and DM Minister Lindiwe Jalinjali, and also Judge Bozek, Inspecting Judge Bozek, the CEO and the JICS team, and also all honorable members in the platform, and the public and the media that is following the proceedings of today's presiding meeting. Let me welcome the presentation and also interact on making inputs with regard to the presentation that have been made here today. With regards to Program 1 on administration, my question is that the administration budget decreases by 2 million nominally and 3.9 million in real terms in 2026 and 2027, while the management sub-program is cut by 47% nominally. Simultaneously, JICS commits to increase performance targets. How does the Inspectorate intend to meet these commitments within a declining administrative budget? And what specific activities or functions will be prioritized as a result of the budget reduction? Another question, the inclusion of the new targets for 30% youth representation and 2% persons with disability representation is welcomed by the ANC study group. Given that the majority of youth appointment will likely be at the ICCV level, and given the acknowledged high turnover rate among ICCVs, what specific retention strategies, career progression pathways, and support mechanisms, including emotional and psychosocial support, are in place to retain youth appointees and to prevent the 30% target from functioning as a revolving door? What is the current status of the ICT disaster recovery strategy that was to be established in 2025-2026? Was the target achieved? And if not, what factors prevented its achievement? And what corrective measures have been taken to address this matter? What is the current state of JICS network vulnerability testing program and its cybersecurity measures? With regard to Program 2 on inspection and compliance monitoring, the inspection target for 2026-2027 is set at 155 facilities, increasing to 160 by 28 29 financial, an increment of only 10 additional inspections over 3 years. South Africa has over 240 correctional and remanded detention facilities. Does JICS consider a 2-year inspection cycle to be adequate for all facilities? What criteria will be used to determine inspection frequency, and has the Inspectorate considered implementing a risk differentiated inspection framework? The APP targets 80% CEO of reported incidents investigated within 90 days in 2026-2027. What is the protocol for the 10 to 20% of incidents that are not investigated within 90 days? Are these cases closed, deferred, or escalated? And does JICS have any outcome-based data on what percentage of its investigations result in referrals to the NPA, disciplinary action, or documented corrective action by the Department of Correctional Service? The expanded mandatory reporting provisions under Section 95D of the Correctional Services Amendment Act 14 of 2023 now require DCS to report to the inspecting judge on a significantly wider range of incidents, including assault of officials by inmates, torture, sexual violations, hunger strikes, and corrupt activities. That has JICS received any assessment of the volume increase in mandatory reports since the implementation of the expanded reporting provisions? And does it have sufficient capacity to process and respond to this increased volume? Under Program 3 on Regional Coordination and Oversight, Honorable Chairperson, the ICCV program employs 211 ICCVs as at 31 December 2025. JICS stated ambition is to appoint an ICCV at each correctional center in the country. How many correctional centers currently do not have an assigned ICCV, and what is the timeline for achieving full coverage? What is the current average caseload for ICCV, and how does this compare to international best practice for inmate oversight? The goods and services budget for Program 3 is projected to decrease from 4.5 million in 2026-2027 to 2.5 million in 2027-28, which led to the reduction of 44%, given that Program 3 is responsible for regional operations, such as visitors, committee meetings, stakeholder engagement, and ICCV support across the entire country. How will effective regional coordination be maintained within this declining operational budget? In your CEO, in your 2025-2026 SWOT analysis, your presentation cited organizational culture, specifically isolated complaints regarding organizational culture and synergy between the directorates and regions as a weakness. I find it quite striking that the 2026-2027 APPPs makes no mention of this matter. Has this weakness been resolved? If so, what interventions were implemented and what evidence exists of their effectiveness? And also, why is it removed from the APP without any explanation? Least but not last, the APP knows that JICS works with various NGOs, NPOs, and civil society organizations, some of which receive funding from sources that may not be publicly disclosed. As a national government component whose constitutional credibility rests entirely on its perceived and actual independence from both the department it oversees and any external interest, JICS cannot afford ambiguity about who funds the organizations it works with. Any perception that its civil society partners are influenced by undisclosed foreign and private interests will fundamentally undermine public confidence in the integrity of JICS oversight findings and recommendations. My question then is, how does JICS safeguard its institutional independence and manage perceptions of influence or capture arising from disengagement? What due diligence processes are in place when entering into partnerships, memorandum of understandings, or working arrangements with civil society organizations? That will be my submission, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Muela. Then from my side, I did forward all my questions to the CEO before, but I think a lot was covered by colleagues. I just have a few to add, if I might, just quickly, just on the CFO position, just an indication, when do you intend, or what's the plan in terms of appointing CFO in a permanent position? Then on your budget, in real terms, the JICS budget is decreasing after inflation. How do you plan to do more work with less money? And are you not worried that the cuts will hurt your core work? Further to that, there's a perception, a public perception that prisons are hotels and that inmates have more rights than victims. What is your message to ordinary South Africans who feel this way? And how does your work help victims and make communities safer? Then just a quick one on unnatural deaths. You track unnatural deaths in prisons. You want to confirm all of them, but confirming is not investigating. Do you have the skills to do proper independent investigations when an inmate dies in a suspicious way? Or do you rely on DCS? Should you not have a formal agreement with either SAPS or IPID to assist you in that regard? Something that our colleagues did not touch on, it is relating to your ICT disaster recovery strategy. Your 25-26 APP mentioned an ICT disaster recovery strategy. So it was established in 25-26 and then maintained after that. This year you have a new indicator. Number of initiatives implemented as per ICT strategy, target is 4. What are those 4 initiatives? And is your disaster recovery strategy now in place? If the server crashes tomorrow, can you still work? On page 29 of your APP, you mention illicit use of mobile devices in correctional centers and cybercrime. Now, there are regular raids conducted by DCS where large amounts of these mobile devices are confiscated. However, there's a very big difference between the confiscation after the fact and prevention of it entering the facility in the first place. What would you recommend to DCS to prevent the inflow of these devices rather than conducting raid after raid? In terms of cybersecurity, how safe is your own data? Have you done a cybersecurity test? And what are you doing to keep up with contraband phones, because these affect your inspections? I think from my side, I'll limit it to that. And then, yes, CEO, if you and your team can please respond. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you once again, Standing Chair. Let me bring in the inspecting judge. Let him open the discussion, and then we will take it from there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Chair, honourable members who posed their questions, made their observations and comments. I do feel it's necessary for me to repeat that although this at times is a painful process for us to hear these criticisms and so on, we welcome the process and we will do our best to answer these questions because we don't want to proceed as an organization on some false assumptions of our efficiency and so on and so on. I will deal with some of these issues, but I'm going to have to rely on my team for much of the nuts and bolts. I also want to make the observation that we've been asked a very large range of questions, and I think that it may be more efficient for us to also come back with some written responses because I suspect it's simply impossible to give meaningful and detailed answers to all of the questions today. So we are taking notes of the questions and we'll come back with some written responses. And going forward, it actually might be helpful, and I would respectfully ask the committee to consider whether some of these questions, which you've obviously, your members, your honourable members have put a lot of thought into, shouldn't be conveyed to us before the meeting. And that will give us some time to give you detailed and crisper answers to. That's a suggestion going forward. The first thing I'd like to deal with is the question of the Chief Financial Officer vacancy. I understand that there's been an acting CFO for approximately the past year. Last year, before I took up my position, late last year in December, I was appointed as a member of a panel to interview and find a permanent CFO. That panel sat in December, made various recommendations, and we were hopeful that an appointment could be made quite quickly thereafter. The process was unfortunately delayed by one of the interviewees filing a grievance about the process and the provisional outcome, and it has taken quite a long time to resolve that grievance, which had to be done in a procedurally correct manner so as to keep the whole process clear and untainted. Matters were also held up by the fact that two members of the panel are external persons brought in for their expertise and objectivity. So convening the panel at times has been difficult. The grievance has now been resolved, and all that remains is for competency testing of the ranked candidates shortlisted for this this position. I am told that those competency results will be available in early May, and all going well, we hope to make a final appointment in towards the end of May, sometime in May. In the meantime, my understanding is that the acting CFO has done a perfectly adequate job, and that there's no need for us to reach out to Treasury, National Treasury, or the Minister for assistance in this regard. I also want to convey that from my own point of view, I've been concerned about the delay in this appointment, and I've been doing my utmost to ensure that this process moves along. But procedures, grievance procedures, appointment procedures in the state do not happen overnight. So I think that matter, with respect, is in hand. I just want to move on and firstly, let me say that the one point I take from amongst the questions that have been asked is a need for JICS to be more accurate and more focused on what difference it's making with its resolution of complaints and acceptance or otherwise of its recommendations. And the suggestion from a number of honorable members that we must be careful to avoid a situation where we are administratively complying, setting out tables and figures and numbers, but having insufficient regard to the actual outcome. And the core question is, are we making a difference? So speaking for myself, some months ago, I asked JICS to consider, when we talk about the resolution of complaints, to consider a more detailed reporting where we are able to set out how complaints were resolved. Were they resolved to the satisfaction of the complainant? Has the underlying problem being addressed, and so on and so on? So that is something that is work in progress, and that is something I would like to see, because to me, to hear that a complaint has been resolved is insufficiently accurate and just simply doesn't illustrate whether the underlying problems or even the problem on the surface has been resolved. So that we hope to produce something more detailed. Then on the recommendations, I alluded in my introductory remarks to the fact that we want to focus more on the question of whether our recommendations are accepted and enforced by the Department of Correctional Services. And I think this is of importance from the simple point of view that we do a lot of reports, we make a lot of recommendations, and I don't want JICS to get into a situation where we report on prisons, make recommendations, and in a sense, almost leave it there in the hope that the department will accept these recommendations and not. I want to see a greater concentration on recording these recommendations and following up at regular intervals to see why whether these recommendations have been accepted, and if not, why not? Or if they are accepted but haven't yet been put into place, what the timeline is. So that is an area I'd like to see more concentration on. While I'm talking about that, I do want to emphasize that we have the power under the statute at present to make recommendations. We have no executive power. We cannot tell the department we want this changed within 3 months, and if we don't, this is going to happen or that's going to happen. We have to use pressure, advocacy, persuasion, and so on. And there's a limit to the efficacy of those powers. You will appreciate also, honorable members, that there may well be a progression an advance in this regard as and when the JICS bill is passed and finally promulgated, where we will have the power to make recommendations, and then if the DCS or the National Commissioner or whomsoever is responsible does not accept those, then we can ask for reasons, and if the reasons aren't satisfactory, in our estimate at least, that opens the way to reviewing those reasons in a court of law and pushing in that way for more concrete relief. But we're not there yet. So I would urge members to take this into account and to bear in mind always that we are a watchdog. We are a tiny, comparatively speaking, watchdog with a small budget, a very small budget in comparison to the huge budget which the DCS has. And we have these limited powers. And we, of course, are in complete agreement with the observations made by many members of the very extensive problems that they exist within DCS and also within the situated within the greater criminal justice system. But I would urge members to take into account that that is our role. We are not responsible per se for these deviations, substandard, subhumane conditions, and so on. And at times, I seem to get the impression that our role is inadvertently or unconsciously being misconstrued. That said, I go back to what I said earlier. We welcome criticisms and searching questions. I'm just looking at my notes now to see whether there are any further observations I can make at this point. I've heard a number of members refer to the unsatisfactory nature of a 70% completion of investigations, but I emphasize that what we are saying in that regard is that 70% of the investigations will be completed within 90 days. That doesn't mean that the other 30% go begging or closed or unresolved. That is, as I understand it, a concrete recognition of the fact that some investigations are complicated, that we have to struggle to get reports out of DCS as to what happened from their side, struggle to get documentation. That can't all be achieved within 90 days. But all investigations must be seen through to conclusion. Also related to that matter was questions about the capacity of JICS to conduct these investigations. My understanding is that our team is limited, that we would like to build up that team of investigators. And of course, I think we need to recognize that we don't have the resources or the expertise on hand at the moment to equal that of the SAPS or IPID or similar bodies. But I take the point too that we must consider whether we shouldn't be entering into agreements or understandings with bodies such as IPID as to whether they are prepared to cooperate and to assist us with investigations where needs be. That is something also that we are giving thought to. Litigation. There's complaints about the number of instructions we're giving and so on, and the costs of litigation. I speak subject to correction of the CEO and our chief legal officer in this matter. My understanding is that we are involved in a very limited number of pieces of litigation, and that our budget or expenditure on litigation is limited. There's one arbitration award, and that seems to recur on a continuing basis in these figures for reasons which I'm not able to explain. But it's certainly not a matter where JICS is spending inordinate sums of money on litigation or arbitration awards or anything of the like. Litigation is not our first tool. It may become more important as the years pass, but at the moment, that's certainly not my understanding, and I can give the committee an assurance in this regard. Yes, we may well be trying to do more work with a declining budget in real terms. My understanding is that we've had a difficulty in the past in that we've underspent, and you can't underspend on one hand and ask National Treasury or the government as a whole for a larger budget. But according to figures and reports which I've received very recently over the past few days, that underspending picture is looking much more promising now, and that we are not at at the level which we were previously and which was complained of. And then, of course, once we're in that position where there's no underspending, we will be looking for a greater budget. There's been a complaint about the number of inspections that we're doing, 150 inspections. I read the draft APP report, which referred to 150, going forward to 150 inspections per year. And I raised the question of whether we cannot increase this target with immediate effect to 160 or more. And that prompted a discussion within JICS, the relevant departments. And the report I got was that although JICS would like to commit to a greater target immediately, this simply cannot be done with the available staff. And I have to accept that, and I pressed a little harder, and we have a commitment to 160 inspections. It is also of concern to me that that if we cannot inspect every single facility on an annual basis, we must make sure that there are no facilities which go uninspected for long periods of time. And I've conveyed that to JICS' CEO that I'd like to see a program that ensures that that is the case, so that there's no, as I say, correctional centers which go under the radar for long periods of time. Yes, our ambition there would be, and hopefully one day we'll get there, to inspect every facility within on an annual basis. Under spending stage, rehabilitation and reintegration programs is also something I would personally like to see JICS place greater emphasis on. I think it relates directly to questions of overcrowding, and what we seek is that our authority to inquire as to the existence and the efficacy and efficiency of rehabilitation, reintegration, and education programs is recognized in law, and that we can ask these questions, because I think it's fundamental to the mandate of or the policy of DCS, and as such, I think that's an area that we should be interested and concerned to look into. Forgive me for a moment, just looking through my notes. I will leave it to the CEO and to any other representative of JICS to speak in more detail to the question of career path for ICCVs and as a particular class. But my understanding is that, well, firstly, I see the role of an ICCV as a very valuable, not only valuable functionally, but valuable from the point of view of JICS, that we can identify those ICCVs who stand out and look to draw them into the organization on a more permanent basis in a more senior role. That's in our interests. We would obviously like people that we've seen, that we have trained, seen perform well over time, and draw them into the organization. But of course, we have a limited budget, we have limited posts, and we cannot just keep building the post establishment to draw in more and more ICCVs. There's obviously a limit there. And I would also like to say in general terms that when we interview for new posts, for putting people into new posts, then obviously almost the first place we look, subject to the processes and procedures of the appointment process, is we look to our existing staff, and in my observations, many of the applicants who make shortlists are existing existing JICS employees. Just going off to some of the questions which the Honourable Acting Chair raised. The hotel question. My response would be that we want to convey to the public that that is a complete misperception. My more immediate or gut reaction would be, if you think that inmates in South Africa are living in hotels, please come and spend a few hours in any correctional facility. Pollsmoor is a good example, and see the conditions there, and that will soon disabuse you of that idea. We need to convey that more forcefully to the public, and also to convey the very basic notion that you can be confined for a year, 6 months, 2 years to a 5-star hotel with 3 meals a day and soft downy pillows and mattresses. Believe you me, 99 people out of 100 would say, let me out of here. I want my freedom, never mind these conditions. So that would be my message, and I think that's the message which we would like to convey, as I say, more forcefully to the public, because it's a damaging perception, because it almost fosters the idea that conditions in prisons, in correctional facilities, must be made more and more punitive, which essentially is counterproductive. The Department of Correctional Services is called that, and not the Department of Punitive Services, because the ultimate goal of the entire department must be correctional. Take people, hold them in safe and humane conditions whilst they serve their sentence, and hopefully send them out into society with a more positive aspect, rehabilitated and capable of taking, better capable of taking their place in society as productive citizens. Mr. Honourable Acting Chair, finally, you spoke about concerns about the inflow of cell phone devices. I've also watched with interest recent inspections, raids, searches, and so on, when huge numbers of cell phone devices are brought out. And you can imagine that the ways of getting contraband cell phones into prisons are absolutely unlimited. And my thoughts have turned over the last few months to finding some kind of solution which immobilizes phones, where you have correctional facilities or areas where cell phones simply don't operate, and staff have to be provided with other means of communicating with each other, as they did 20, 30 years ago, so that this problem can be alleviated. Those are my only thoughts on it. I don't have a particular technological expertise, but it seems to me this is like trying to stop a flood by putting your fingers in the dike, and that this will never work. And one is looking to a wider solution. I think that's about as much as I can usefully contribute at this stage, Honourable Chair. And if I may, I'll turn it over to the CEO and other members of the team, and once again give you the assurance that we may not, even though we may not enjoy the criticism and the searching questions 100%, we welcome them, and we are taking notes, and we will come back where appropriate with more detailed responses. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge. And then Mr. Misa from your team. Thank you. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chairperson, and also honourable members. A judge made a proposal of us submitting all our responses in writing. I'm not sure whether the Honorable Chair is in agreement with this or whether you still want us to try and see high level respond to some of the burning questions that has been raised by you, Chair, and by some of the members. I'll be guided by you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Misa. Yes, I do prefer that we engage on this platform, just so that, you know, after you finished, I will ask the members if they are satisfied. If not, then obviously we can then talk about responding in writing or something else. But please continue.
Thank you so much for the opportunity then, Honorable Chair. I will put my video off so that we save on the bandwidth. And let me try and see how I can cover most of the burning issues. I think let's start off with the National Inspection Plan. As cited in Program 2, we have a output indicator at 150. It is determined in terms of our National Inspection Plan that this is what we're going to conduct over the cycle of 12 months. Now, the reservations and concerns raised by some of the members, what happens to the 93 that's not conducted? And how do we address this? Now, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, Judge, we have what we would call an Aboshlole project that deals with unannounced inspections and covers approximately, on an average, 60 more inspections over the performance cycle. That equates to a shortfall of just 33 that needs to be conducted. So the short answer is yes. We want to conduct all 243 inspections over a 12-month cycle and report accordingly to this esteemed August House. But nevertheless, due to budget constraints, we are short in this area, and which is being dealt with in the budgeting process and the MTE process. Now, let me talk about the budget shortfalls that has been raised across many of the honorable members, that specifically in Program 2, the budget has decreased from 3.9 to 3.5 with an adjustment of from 2 million, the amounts are given 2 million down from 5 million to 2.5 million. So I think the reason for this, in this current performance cycle, there has been specifically monies allocated through the budgeting process for the accommodation needs for the Eastern Cape Management Region. And that process is unfolding as I speak to you now with the stakeholder partner, that is DPWI, in our procurements of the additional accommodation in the Eastern Cape region. As I speak to you, we are hoping that this process would be finalized soon so that we could then start with what we would call the accommodation needs, the refurbishing, the furniture, the equipment that needs to be purchased so that we could meet the needs of this performance cycle, that is the 2026-2027. As you've cited, 27-28 is a reduction, which would not require that additional funding, and that funding has been reprioritized in certain other deliverable areas. Now, unnatural deaths. It is actually covered on our page 46 of our APP, and it's there because we are actually reporting on all areas of deaths that occurs within the prison. Now, with limited resources, we try as far as possible to investigate all deaths that occur within the environment, and specifically zooming in on those matters that has occurred through unnatural consequences, suicides specifically, overdose of bulk medication, the matters where inflictions of the excessive use of force that has been inflicted on an inmate and has resulted in a fatality. These are the matters that have been transacted through our inspections and investigations unit to investigate accordingly. Honorable Chair, honorable members, let's talk about retention policies. Broadly, by government, this is dealt with in policies of the Department of Public Service and Administration. Yes, we take from Honorable Niehaus that we should have a internal policy on retention strategy, but nevertheless, we are still regulated by regulations in the public service regulations that specifically deals with how one deals with retention of staffs in Regulation 43. And this is spelled out beautifully, which we are guided by and which we apply from time to time when officials need to be retained in the organization. I've covered the decrease. Honorable Kluter has also asked about the 4.5 to 2.5, and I've covered that. Let's talk about key stakeholders. Apart from the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure that we have a relationship on the acquired accommodation, we are also engaging them on our current existing leases that needs to be attended to. And as I speak to you now, we've dispatched a letter to the DG of DPWI to renew the existing contractual obligations of our lease in our current home, that is the JICS head office in Pretoria. Similarly, we are also engaging the department on our accommodation needs in the Eastern Cape Management Region, and on a continuous basis engage DPWI on all other leases that we currently have on hand. Let me talk about other stakeholders. That is critically important for us to, as enshrined in this APP. That is the Department of Health that needs to help with all declared state patients, and that's a subject on its own, and it's quite a prominent subject within this esteemed committee. So we are reliant on the Department of Health to assist us to ensure that currently we're sitting with 407 declared state patients. When are they going to be moved to the respective institutions? Similarly, we are also dependent on the Department of South African Police Services for the finalization of some of our criminal matters. Similarly, we are also dependent on the National Directorate of Public Prosecutions in giving us directions in some of our dockets that is currently placed before them for decision. And likewise with the Department of Home Affairs on all our matters that deals with non-nationals and how they are going to be deported when they're supposed to. So this is part of our broader stakeholder engagements within the justice cluster. And this is how we meet on a regular basis at quarterly meetings at our VCs to attend to this. And that comes to what we would call our annual VC presentations that we have from time to time, VC constituted meetings that occur across all areas in the JICS footprint. Now the budget, just under 130 million. Honorable Chair, honorable members, with this limited resources and the budget constraints of the fiscus itself, we need to do more with the little that we have. And we need to continue working around in reprioritizing our funding with the guidance of National Treasury on a monthly basis to reprioritize our funding so that we at least meet our targets as enshrined in this APP. And that is our goal, because after all, we need to come and account on all our areas of deliverables to you. Let's talk about the ITC disaster recovery, because I think that was one of the threads that came through across all members. Now, JICS has already implemented its disaster recovery arrangements through the State Information Technology Agency, and that is SITA. We have already an MOU and a MAA with them in terms of the deliverables that is required, has been signed off by me personally and on behalf of the organization. And all our critical document systems, our security stored information are all covered and packaged into cloud. And we ensure continued operations in the event of server failure. Let me tell you this. If we have to go down, we will be able to start up within the next 24 hours on a site and location determined by the CEO in consultation with the inspecting judge. So this is business continuity, and this is where JICS stands firmly. Now, one of the areas that strongly comes through is the ITC steering committee, which we have most recently established. And this ITC steering committee will strengthen the ICT governance and oversight of our organization, as led by the inspecting judge. Now, Honorable Chair, honorable members, as part of this initiative, the organization has secured the services of an information service executive from the South African Legal Services. And there you can see it. We are partnering. We're partnering with members that we can associate with and bring on board to give us the necessary capacity that we need to ensure smooth functionings of our systems, the integrity of our systems, and that there is no compromise in terms of cyber attacks, etc., which we were almost subjected to during the early months of February this year, which we then fixed with the assistance of SITA. Now, closing of cases. One asks whether cases are just closed and we are forgotten. The short answer is no. We don't close any cases. We ensure that we go back, as the judge has indicated, to all our customers, who is the inmates, that has laid complaints, to the speedy resolution of all complaints on hands as submitted by each one of them. So I think that is partly covered in Program 2 under the complaints mechanism and how this is transacted amongst the 25 categories of complaints enlisted on a quarterly basis and pulled into the annual report as enshrined in our annual reports, which you will see very soon. Now, the next question that was asked was about the ICCV program, that we employ 211 currently out of the approved establishment of 225. But the question was, how many does not have ICCVs? Or specifically, how many centers do not have ICCVs? The answer is 43. 43 centers do not have ICCV presence, but these are very small centers, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members. These centers have inmates of less than 100. And therefore, as alluded by the inspecting judge, this area, in his opening introductory remarks, that these centers are specifically covered by our VCCOs, the supervisors of the respective ICCVs, to ensure that business continuity takes place at those respective smaller centers. Now, the question about organizational culture. Yes, it comes from early days of 2023, 2024, where some issues of organizational culture was reported to the former inspecting judge. And I can broadly and proudly state here that all these issues that have been raised has been amicably resolved by the outgoing inspecting judge, and the current inspecting judge will continue to monitor organizational culture. It is an issue that does not need to be brought into the APP at this stage, because it is broadly covered by the principles and values of the organization that's enshrined in this APP. Do we have the necessary skills to conduct all the investigations? Yes, we have limited skills in this area. It's an area that we're still developing. It is a new directorate. It's a directorate still to be funded by the National Treasury, and that is our investigation arm. And as we are dealing with this discussion with National Treasury on the funding, the capacitation around this specific area will ensure that we have the competent persons, the competencies and the skills required in order for us to deliver in our mandate. Currently, we have established what we would call a database of experts and academics that can advise us from time to time on some of the complex and sophisticated investigations on our hands, like Professor Simon from the University of UP in Pretoria. I can give you many others that we have on our database. The last one, how does these counterbands enter the correctional services? I think that question is most apt for the National Commissioner to respond to. And most importantly, I'm sure the National Commissioner will deal with this appropriately to ensure that whoever enters the space of a correctional environment is secure and safe, and that all counterbands that's entering these spaces should be limited and minimized. I covered it broadly. If there's any areas that you feel that we have not covered, I'm sure we'll be able to have further engagements. Thank you so much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Misa. Honorable members, that was the response from JICS. Is there anyone that feel that their questions was not answered sufficiently?
Honorable Chair, if I may interject, I was looking at my notes while Mr. Missa was addressing you, and there are two things which I'd like to come back to, if I may, which were raised. One of them by a number of the honorable members, and one of your questions, which was not addressed. So if that suits you, then I'm happy to deal with this. And then, okay, thank you very much. A number of members expressed concern that when JICS works with NGOs and NPOs, its independence is influenced by that adversely. There's a limited number of NPOs and NGOs that we work with. And when we interact with these bodies, because they have greater experience or greater expertise in that area and that they may be able to assist us, we are interacting with them on the basis of our mandate. We are very clear about our mandate, which is to serve the interests of the broader South African community by acting as a watchdog of the in the area of the carceral system in our country, and every member of staff is aware of that. Senior staff are well aware of that mandate. It's ingrained in training. So with respect, fears that our independence will be influenced they may well be exaggerated. When we do interact with these organizations, we don't ask them as a matter of first order, where do you get your money from? Who's funding you, and so on and so on. If, however, when we work with these organizations, we develop concerns about what their any goals that they may have which do not align with ours, we will obviously ask those questions if we need to satisfy ourselves that we are working with worthy partners. So I want to assure all members that they should not have undue concerns in this regard. Then secondly, alluding to one of your questions, Honorable Acting Chair, you asked where our views around the question of probation for first-time offenders of non-violent crime vis-a-vis incarceration as a possible measure to mitigate the extreme overcrowding crisis. You also observed in your question that this would require a significant budget allocation by way of electronic monitoring and more trained probation officers. Well, obviously, Mr. Chair, Honorable Chair, we support non-carceral solutions where appropriate and taking into account the safety of the public. We support that 100%, both as a partial solution to the question of overcrowding and as a solution to the question of rehabilitation and ensuring that first-time offenders in particular do not enter into a negative environment and come out in worse condition than when they went in. So we would welcome that. And if that meant that JICS would need an inspectorate of probation, adding to our responsibilities, we would be happy to accept that, of course, in the hope and expectation that our budget could be increased. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge. Honorable Niehaus, you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you, Acting Chair. Yes, there are a couple of my questions that I am not entirely happy that they've been answered, but I do also want to acknowledge that I've asked quite a number of questions, and in that regard, I have sent the full summary of my input and the questions also to the administration so that they can make it available to JICS to give further responses. But the few issues that I wanted either clarity on or highlight that the question has not been fully answered is the response that the inspecting judge gave about the complaint resolution targets. If I understood him correctly, he says, look, we do not settle for effectively a 70% success rate, but we do have an initial 70% that are dealt with, and others may drag on for longer. But ultimately, and this is where I want to get clarity on, we are committed to 100% resolution rate on mandatory reports on deaths, assaults, and issues of segregation. So that is the case. That, of course, is a very positive one. Then I did ask the question, why does the annual performance report contain no outcome-based KPIs for reductions in a natural deaths, official on inmate assaults, or the percentage of JICS recommendations actually implemented by the DCS? I didn't get a clear answer on that. I also didn't get a clear answer on the unexplained omission of the percentage of instructions that were issued to the state attorney as an indicator in the annual performance plan. I asked very specifically why was this removed, and I raised the concern that this may indicate a lack of transparency and legal enforcement capacity. Then I'm happy with the response of the inspecting judge about engagements with NGOs, NPOs, and also international organizations, not just domestic NGOs and NPOs. But I would still love to get a report on what agreements has JICS entered into with these NGOs and NPOs, and what international MOUs, if any, have been signed in the 2025-2026 financial year. Obviously, it is of interest to know if there are concerns about the intentions of these NGOs, to know what their funding is and whether there is specific government funding on an international basis involved, and how that possibly influences the objectives of those NGOs and NPOs, and do they try to exert pressure in one way or another on JICS to go in a specific direction. So if we can get such a report, if there are particular formal engagements that have been signed into international MOUs, my apology, that have been signed into, can we please get a report on that? As far as the rest of my questions are concerned, as I said, I presented them to the administration, and JICS will receive them to respond to them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Neus, just for clarity's sake, so you would be happy with a written response to your questions, or those that you touched on now, would you want to have a response right now?
Following the indication that you've given that we prefer to get responses here in committee, I thought I should highlight these particular ones, and that we can perhaps get a response from JICS to them. And then the rest of the questions that I've asked, which have to some extent but not entirely responded to, I'm happy for them to be responded in writing, since my full document with the questions has been forwarded to the administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Neus, for that. I saw for a moment that, Honorable Klute, you had your hand up. Did you put it down? Don't you want to ask that a question any longer, or should I consider?
No, Chair, I'm covered.
Are you covered? Okay, thank you very much. So, JICS, if you could please respond to Honorable Neus in that regard. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Acting Chair. I'll add what I can at the moment. Honorable House's understanding of the 70%, 30% proportion, and that the 30% doesn't reflect cases which are ignored or prematurely closed is correct. Secondly, I'm not sure that we are on the same page as regarding instructions to the state attorney and so on and so on. I did remark earlier to colleagues that I don't quite understand the setting of targets of sending instructions to the state attorney. To my mind, you can't target that. That's a question of what arises in a given year or a given reporting period. Did you need to use the services of the state attorney? A year might go by. You send no instructions to the state attorney. That doesn't mean you're not functioning effectively. Thirdly, as regards agreements with NPOs and NGOs, I speak subject to correction. I'm not aware of any memorandums of understanding which have been reached with internal or external NPOs or NGOs. If they are, we will advise you of them. The only memorandum of understanding that I am aware of is one which I think has not been signed yet, but we have interacted with the South African Bail Fund, the organization of which you are well aware, and they want us to share some statistics with them, and they've set out a memorandum of understanding, but I think that has yet to be concluded. We can report on that in due course. So to the extent that I don't have a full picture, we undertake to get back to you on that question by way of written answers to the questions which you are going to send through to us through the administration. If the CEO would like to add anything, he must please do so.
Mr. Misa?
No, I don't think I have any further additions. The judge has covered it most aptly. Thank you so much. Thank you, Judge.
Well, thank you very much to JICS. If I can conclude by the recommendations from the committee is pleased to see that your APP is structured and honest. The committee is concerned about vacancies in general, and in particular that of the CFO. This position has been vacant for long. We urge JICS to put more effort in the current financial year to ensure that this position is filled. The committee will monitor developments in this regard quarterly. The committee is eagerly awaiting to receive the JICS bill and will appreciate regular updates on progress. Without this piece of legislation, you are not fully independent. The committee is pleased to note the target of 30% on youth employment. We have encouraged JICS to ensure career growth for these young people and not only to remain as ICCVs for a long time. JICS is encouraged to ensure alignment between budget and its APP targets. Spending should be closely monitored to avoid under or overspending in the current period. The committee will be monitoring your performance in this regard on a quarterly basis. The committee appreciates the proactiveness of JICS in identifying risks and coming up with mitigation measures. The committee urges JICS to ensure that its performance targets translate into real interventions in assisting to prevent the violation of inmates' rights. Now, honourable members, that would be the recommendations from our committee. And I would like at this stage to thank JICS for their presence and for the presentation and hard work that they have been doing. And I want to wish everybody a very peaceful long weekend. As you know, the committee members will be going on oversight. We will be visiting Mpumalanga in the coming week. And with that said, and no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.